What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another Antler and Feather Co. podcast, the podcast for new and adult onset hunters. My name's Vince. I'm going to be your host, and this week we have the Ranch Fairy. Guys, I know Ranch Fairy comes with controversy. He is a love him or hate him kind of guy. I particularly love him. I think he's funny. I agree with a lot of what he says, but with that being said, we're going to try to avoid the heavy arrow, the single bevel. We're going to talk about that stuff, but this episode is not going to be just a light arrow bashing episode. Instead, we're going to pick out different controversial things throughout the hunting community, and we're going to talk about them. It's going to be a lot of fun. We will touch on arrows, I'm sure. But we're also going to talk about, Troy Fowler, not just the Ranch Fairy. What does he like to do? He likes to fish, he likes to hunt, he likes to do all this other stuff as well. So we will cover that. So stay tuned for that. Couple housekeeping things. Number one, when you guys listen to this episode, I believe it's July 19th of last year, and this should come out on the 20th. That is our 1 year anniversary for the podcast. So this is kind of like our 1 year anniversary episode. I did not know in the beginning whether we were going to make it a full year. A lot of podcasts start strong and they fizzle out and they don't quite make it. So the only reason that we made it a year is because of you guys, because of the listeners, the AFCO family. You guys have kept me going. All of the comments, all the direct messages, everything that has been encouraging. You guys are why I'm still doing this. And I get such a kick out of the fact that you guys are still enjoying it. It's awesome. I love you guys. Thank you so much. Sincerely, I appreciate every one of you guys. And let's see where this goes in 2 years. Let's make it another year. But anyway, thanks for a great first year. You guys are awesome. I love you guys. Moving on. If you want to check out antlerfeatherco.com, get over there. I messed some things up and then I fixed some things. So we kind of got something cool going on over there. It's going to look a little bit different at the homepage, but same gear. I'm trying to put out some new things so you guys can check those out. The AFCO Bomb Squad tee has been really popular. I love that. I love you guys for that. You guys stuck with me through the Instagram ban, prison sentence, whatever you want to call it. So thanks for that. If you use code AFCOPOD, so AFCO Pod, that's going to get you 10% off at antlerfeatherco.com. I think that's all I want to cover for right now. So let's get into the episode with Troy Fowler, the Ranch Fairy. There he is.
How are you, man?
How's it going? I'm good. How are you doing?
Finer than frog hair split 3 ways. How's that?
It sounds good. You look miserable.
Oh, fine.
You look pissed off to be
Nah.
here.
Just waiting for the stupid thing to work. I'm just an old person.
Oh, man. Tell me about it. It took me forever to really kind of figure out how to utilize this Riverside in the best way. And then in the very beginning, so many people are like, why don't you just use Zoom? Why don't you? And I'm like, because the video and audio quality is a lot better and it's better for me editing. And they're like, yeah, but it's just, I got to download this thing and I got to click. And I'm like, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
We'll make it.
Is my audio good?
Yeah, you're fine. Okay. Yep.
Hang on, I'm going to go grab something in case it happens on every podcast that I need my big arrow that's like this long. I'll be right back.
That works. All right.
Yeah, sometimes you got to have a big arrow.
That is an adult arrow for sure.
Absolutely. Barnett made me that and the Rocket Man, and it's been really, really handy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so per our discussion on Instagram, I think it would be fun to talk about some of the stuff you get and I get. And in that, the arrows and stuff will come into it, right? Because that's where I reside, right? And,
right.
And some of the stuff that is kind of rattling around the bow hunting community.
Yeah.
And some of it's really illogical, and some of it is really illogical. Other than that, it's illogical.
Yeah, no, I thought that was so. The way I try to make my podcast unique in the fact that when I talk to guys, like when I'm talking to buddies and just, for lack of a better term, guys who are no names in the industry, we're just all out here. I'm one of them. When I talk to guys like that, we'll talk hunting, we'll talk, what they're doing. When I get guys like you who have notoriety, people know who you are. I like to try to present a different podcast than the last 15 you've been on.
Yep. That's what I like to do too. There's a lot of, well, you post some pretty fun Instagrams that poke a lot of, you're not scared of drawing blood. So you must get some fun. So
I do. It all started back. So I had a, you're in Texas.
Yeah.
You watch the Astros at all?
Sure.
So JP France, I don't know if you know who that is. He just got called up probably, I don't know. I think he's made 7 starts now. I had him on the podcast because he's a bow hunter. I had him on the podcast, I don't know, some half a year ago when he was still a minor leaguer. And we were talking, and I made the comment. I was trying to talk about like how I feel like I'm a new hunter, but I feel like bow hunting is a special thing. It's different than gun hunting. It's more intimate. And I made the comment that I don't think that if you shoot a crossbow, I don't think you're a bow hunter. I think you're a crossbow hunter. And I didn't mean it maliciously. I meant it and is saying like, I feel like the act of drawing a vertical bow, like not to get too weird, but it's almost a sacred thing.
Yep.
The intimacy with the animal, the closeness. And man, so I had a lot of that for me at the time. I had like 800 followers and that reel went like 250,000 views. I gained like 1,000 followers, like, but in the thing, like that was my first real feeling of like how great and how vicious Instagram can be, because I had a lot of guys that agreed and I had a lot of guys that didn't. And like I said in that Instagram, or that message to you, is the most hate that I got for that crossbow, because a lot of the crossbow guys were like, yeah, I kind of agree with you. Yeah. I kind of understand that. I had a lot of older guys say, hey, I can't pull a bow. I used to bow hunt, but I can't pull one. I said, hey, man, you're still a bow hunter. That's not the point I was making. But the trad bow community tore my ass apart.
Really? The stick guys?
Yes, because they said, in a nutshell, if you feel that way about a crossbow hunter, I feel that way about you because you have a compound bow. You've got let off. You've got blah, 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 blah. You got sights. You've got this and that. And I was like, bro, I was pointing out the fact that a crossbow essentially functions as a rifle versus a vertical bow that you have to move. You have to draw in the presence of an animal. Crossbow, my brother-in-law hunts with the crossbow. He sits back with it already cocked, and he just sits there and he waits. That's not the same thing. But all that to say, that was my first like dive into like, oh, and you kind of understand that there's a line where you know where this line is, but there's that line where you can touch to get the attention to your social media. Where I don't want to just, I didn't come out and say, no, crossbow hunters are gay. Like I didn't do, but there is that line. So I kind of figured out like, well, what else can I touch on from kind of a passive way of not necessarily saying my opinion is if you hunt on a farm over a food plot, you're cheating, but to put it out there as like, what do you guys think about this scenario? Do you think it's cheating? That way people don't attack me directly, but it gets people talking.
That kind of a comment though, so there's so many nuances. I hope you're recording.
Oh, I know.
I hope you're recording right now.
I am now, yeah.
So let's do that one, because I get accused of shooting over deer feeders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a big issue with a lot of people.
But I'm not a hunting channel.
Right.
And I've said that about 7 million times. So I get these chip shot guys. I just had an outfitter who outfits in Mexico, and he's my latest troll. So any posts I put up, he says, here's the ranch fair. He literally says, selling that shit that he sells. And then he goes on a little rant. I live in Texas. Mexico's becoming much more commercialized. They're starting to high fence the coos deer. They're starting to put them in. They're big properties. Okay. Yeah. And it's tough to hunt a 10,000 acre property under a fence. Trust me, it's fair unless you run them up against a fence, and they don't do that. So this guy's, all you do is shoot deer over a deer feeder. He had been chipping at me, right? And I just kind of played it soft. I said, fine, I'm kicking him in the ass. I said, okay, Mr. Outfitter guy, I assume you sell hunts for money. They must be shitty hunts because you're just selling your shitty freaking service. Second,
right.
Do you have any man-made water holes on your property? Because that's the way that shit rolls down there. I'm from Texas, brother. I know how it goes. And you guys are fencing the coos deer. You're putting in man-made water holes, and then you put up a tent line 20 yards away so your client can fly in on an airplane and shoot a deer in a day and a half. Shoot a 120-inch coos deer that you freaking protein fed all summer. And you got cameras. Easy, brother, easy. He went radio freaking silent. Well, I'm not that guy. So I kept piling on. And I said, hey, where's your comment? You're living in a glass house. When the sun comes up and you start throwing rocks, the data changes.
Yeah.
It's crickets. But I've taken that stance. I don't care. There's a lot of analytics. There's a lot of things that I should do better to improve my brand or whatever. And I kept my job. And I have a really good job, 20-year career. People call me sir, which is freaking weird. My kids should do that, but not adults. Right. And I started the channel and said, I don't care. I'm going to say whatever I want. And if I don't smack it, if people are being honest, but if you can kind of read in the comments when they're saying, yeah, but I don't know about, they kind of do that. I softball those people and see where they're going. And then they fall off the rails. I take no crap. I will scorch somebody down on YouTube. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it. I don't give a hoot in hell about it.
Well,
you're wrong.
One thing I've noticed with you is, and well, not just with you, with kind of the world in general at the moment, you come out, you present facts.
I try.
You don't, and the extra to it is you don't just spew bullshit that you think. You do the work to actually test, show people what you're testing, back up what you're saying.
I try to,
Now, it's one thing to have somebody say, hey, man, I think there's something wrong with your test. I think there's something wrong. I think that healthy debate is a great thing.
I get a lot of scientists on the side. All the smart guys email me. They don't get on YouTube.
Yeah, correct.
They say, hey, could you have done, and I've had a couple of videos pop out of that and go, well, hell, I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Great comments. Like, they're like, hey, I see where you're going, but should you? And then, trust me, if you do testing, the minute you do a test, you got 40 more questions. Crap. Yeah. We should have done that. We did a test with the hunting public. They were just down here shooting pigs. They come every June. And they're going to post the video, but we shot arrows through different random amounts of brush. We got to the point through some grass that you couldn't see the target. We'd kind of say, aim about here and shoot 20 yards and hope to God it hit the target, right? And we found out that like leafy, soft stuff with broadheads, even mechanicals, didn't really matter. You could literally shoot at it. It might be a little unethical if you think about that because you don't know where the body's at. But say you got an arrow in one and it stands up in the brush or in soft grass in this case, and you say, well, it's better to shoot at them than let them run around because I know we got up, and you send one through the bushes. And then we got up to woody stuff about 1/8 of an inch thick, and the arrows were going. They single bevel, 600 grains, mechanicals, none of them survived it.
Really?
Right.
Even like a full 12 factor was still getting deflected off that small stuff.
Because that woody stuff just has enough. I think the woody stuff's getting hit and doing this, then getting cut. So it's flexing a little bit, and then the arrow starts to do this. And some of them stayed on. It wasn't worth trying. I mean, that was our analysis. It's not worth doing.
Yeah.
But the soft stuff was. I mean, the slow-mo's awesome. You just see the soft stuff flying out of there. And
you're just mowing the grass with a single bevel.
And
that's awesome.
After the test, Warburton says, damn it, we should have shot a lighter arrow. We should have shot this. We should have done that. We should have done, we should have had the lab radar. And I was like, yeah, right. Yeah. That's what happens when you do testing.
Right.
Is you come up with all these ideas that you should. Well, you only know shoulda if you do. F around and find out, right? That's going around the Instagram right
exactly.
So that's been – the sideline comments have been really helpful for me. But that one guy smacking at me about the deer feeders. I use them so I get to shoot a lot at a lot of animals. Yeah. I mean, I'm totally leveraging something. The state doesn't care about them.
Right.
You legally can't shoot a deer multiple times to test. It's wanton waste.
Right.
There are laws against that. Like shooting it again and again and again, you could be fined for that.
Yeah.
You could shoot pigs with an RPG. No one cares. Dynamite, helicopter's badass.
Texas.
Yes. I've done the helicopter. The helicopter's awesome. Right?
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of things I wanted to touch with you. And I guess I want to jump into one of the things. This is kind of a new thing that's going out.
Hey, flag that for 1 second.
Okay.
I start all my shows. So our show, guys, if you're listening now, it's just going to take off and go. Usually there's kind of like an introduction, but we just got into it and we're recording. So I'm not going to, I'm just going to let it roll. I do like to start the conversation. I do a little prayer beforehand.
Of course.
And then we'll get right into where you want to
Let's
go.
do it.
Sound good?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Lord, I thank you again for, Troy doesn't know this yet. This is the 1 year anniversary show of this podcast.
Nice.
Why you led me to do this, I have no idea. But you did. And because of that, this is first and foremost, before hunting, before everything, this is your platform to reach your people. And I'm so grateful that you've given me this show. You have given me, for a show that's just hitting a year, the guests that you have provided for me, guys like Troy, who never in a million years, 3 years ago, when I first saw him on Hunting Public Video, when I just became a new hunter, he's the ranch fairy. I'm never going to talk to that guy. Now I have him on my show. So Lord, I thank you for that. You have come through time and time again, whether it's guests, whether it's podcast equipment, whatever it is, you have come through, and I'm just very grateful that you've put this in my life and you've continued to drive me forward with it. So first, Lord, use this podcast to glorify yourself. I'm thankful for Troy. I'm thankful for his life. I'm thankful for what you've put in front of him, everything, all the knowledge that he shares. He's just an amazing, it's entertaining, but it's entertaining filled with knowledge and data, and just he's just a great guy, and I'm so thankful for him. So I just want to make sure that you know that, Lord. We are going to have a great show, a fun show. I ask that you be with us with the rest of the conversation. I know you will be, and we ask all this in Jesus' great name.
Amen.
Amen.
That's fantastic.
All right, man. So let's get into it.
All right.
Let's get going.
So, first of all, give me some history. What's new hunter mean?
So, in terms of me,
I want to know who I'm talking to.
So I have grown up my entire life. I've always loved the outdoors. Mm-hmm. I've always been outdoors. But growing up, I didn't grow up in hunting family at all. I had nobody around me, no friends, families, no crazy
kidding.
uncle, nobody hunted. And when I met my wife years back, her brother-in-laws both hunt. And I had always wanted to hunt, but it was one of those things where it was like almost insurmountable, because I was like, I know that there's legality issues. I know that there's tags and blah, blah. So I never got into it because it was just too intimidating. Not to mention I had nowhere to hunt. I didn't realize public land was a thing.
Yeah, right.
So I just never got into it. And I went down, I think it was 2017, I went down to Arkansas to visit family, and my brother-in-law threw me in a tree stand with a shotgun, and I shot my first deer.
Nice.
So fast forward a couple years, that was my only hunting experience. I went back home, and obviously, like after you take a deer, like that was on my mind a lot. And I was like, maybe I should look into this hunting thing. Let's see how confusing it is. And it wasn't until 3 years ago, so it would have been 2020, like everyone else in the world. I was like, you know what? We got all this time away from work. We got all this. I'm going to figure this thing out because I want to get into hunting. Yeah. And then one of my buddies, my best friend from high school, who I'm still best friends with, he started hunting because he had some farmland and his father-in-law got him into it. So long story short, he was going to get a new bow. He's like, hey, do you want to buy my old bow? I know you said you wanted to get into hunting. So I bought his bow, and it just sparked from there. I started shooting my bow.
Good for you.
I started looking into hunting, figured out. So the whole premise of AFCO, my whole project is I want people who are new to hunting to kind of have an area where they can somewhat fast track some of the things that I went through that they don't necessarily need to go through. I want you to know that, like, getting into hunting is one of those things where when you're on the other side of the fence, it seems like it's too much. Mm-hmm. Once you finally climb the fence, you're like, that wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
So I want to bridge that gap. I want to get people who want to get into hunting. I want to help them in any way I can. So anyway, yeah, I get into it. I get a bow. I figure out I hit up Iowa DNR every single day. It seemed like, asking to make sure I had the right this, the right that. Ended up taking advice from the lady at Walmart who sold me the tags. I was like, is this all you ever sell deer hunters? Mm-hmm. You need a habitat and the license. And she's like, yep, because I took my hunter safety course, God, like when I was like 18, just because I liked the idea. I just never did anything. So I had that already. Mm-hmm. She's like, yeah, you got your hunter safety course, you got your tags, you got your habitat stamp, you're good to go. And I'm like, well, I hope you're right. I put a lot of faith in that Walmart sporting goods employee, and she was right. But yeah, man, I just jumped in. I didn't have any mentors. I tell this I've been fortunate enough to now, I think you're the last one. Aside from the THP guys, everyone that I watched and learned from and still continue to, but especially that first year, you, the hunting public, Seek One. When I got into turkey hunting, it was Dave Owens. You guys were a huge, huge part of. By the end of my first year, I was shooting a 650 grain single bevel.
Good for you.
Because of you. Because what you were saying made sense to me. I'm kind of a smartass. No offense to you, but I'm kind of a smartass myself.
Yep.
And I liked your personality because you were like I'm not going to take your shit.
Yep.
I'm going to tell you what I know and what I've tested.
Yep.
And if you have some crazy theory that, well, mechanicals are better, well, why?
Yep.
They're not.
Yep.
So I learned from you guys, mainly that first year, you and the hunting public.
Well, that's good to hear, because one of the goals of the channel, other than this aha moment about 2014 or 15, when I increased my point mass, increased the spine of my arrows, had no idea how to tune anything, wasn't sharpening very well, but I started having arrows go through animals like lightning bolts. Mm-hmm. And I had shot everything else. Yeah. So, and I'd always gone fast, and I've done what the shop said, and they told me pigs were just tough.
I've heard
physiology doesn't change respiratory therapist, which I am, had a cadaver, which I had. Right. So one of my goals was to help what I call the other 99%. Yeah. And my view of humanity, I think, is pretty practical. Like on my desk, there's books and sand, and there's friggin' pens and pencils and iPads and notes and all kind of things. And the human race, not everybody's a perfect bow shot. But there's this demand in the industry by the industry guys who are the best shooters in the world and assholes because they just point at themselves all the time. They don't have any outward focus. I think Dudley does okay. I don't watch his stuff, but he has like a school and how to do stuff. So I'll set him over here a little bit. But generally speaking, having been chipped at by all the major a couple of the major bow manufacturers, some people who are well-known, guys who've killed the North American slamming sheep. Yeah. They've hunted all over the world. And every comment I go, how'd you help anyone other than you blow your own horn or breathe your own exhaust fumes? Right. So you take this subset of people who are traditionally very good shooters. They're 5-spot guys, they're Vegas guys, they're 3D Olympians, whatever. Okay? Yeah. You're not normal. Right. Why do you have to keep telling us that? I could probably outrun you, outlift you. I guarantee you I can probably hit a golf ball farther than you can. And I'd probably hit my 5-iron as far as your driver. I promise you. I used to carry a 7 handicap, and I can hit a Stinger 5 pretty far, right? So they take out of their own I think it's weakness. I don't think they're very confident people, and they don't try to help. And so here I come, and I'm blunt, and I say things, and I get it, and I push buttons. You and I are common in that.
Yes.
But I also don't lie to anyone. And I don't paint over stuff. I'll give you a perfect comment. I was on another podcast, and I have tested this. Short bows suck. If you shoot a bow 30 inches or under, you're going to start having some torque problems, generally speaking. If you get a 34-inch bow, them things generally eat anything, a broader range of arrows will be thrown correctly, will shoot broadheads pretty good, and they're much more stable. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing I said, and so I'm thinking about average people. I'm not thinking about the best guys in the world. I care about them. They don't count. Right. And by the way, when they shoot 3D, they shoot 4-foot stabilizers and back bars and nibs and all this other crap that they don't hunt with. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I said, and generally speaking, if you go to a 3D tournament and you walk around, and the guys with the eye patches and all that, it's freaking hilarious. The bows are generally longer. And they're generally not super fast. They're generally speaking moderately fast, very stable, and very repeatable and forgiving.
Yeah.
So one of the idiots from the M company, Matt from Matthews, he's all over me all the time. Yeah. He's an idiot.
This show is totally open, so you say what you want to say.
One of the idiots from Matthews, who's also one of my super trolls, and he's done everything bow hunting. Like, why are you coming at me, dude? I have 60,000 subscribers. Nobody. I'm nobody.
Right.
He made a meme, and he carved out what he wanted. So he CNN'd me.
Yeah.
And I said, short bows, something like that. And he put up a picture, and I bet the guys who were in the picture hated it, of his shooters, but he wrote hunting bow over the top. That's not what I said.
Yeah.
I said super short. And I said average people. So he shows the top guys in the world, which he's one of them.
Yeah.
They are really good at shooting a bow. Let's go hit the Stinger 5. Let's go skip soft plastics into trees with a level line. I will burn you down. I spend way too much time fishing. So I wanted to help the average person try to figure out. That's why I came up, and I'm going to talk about my own stuff a little bit, but that's why I came up with the test kit idea. You can take your bow, which still is consistently doing the same thing. Bows do one thing. They go to active state. When you hit the trigger, they go to freaking static state. That's all. They're a giant spring. They're not that sexy.
Yeah.
But longer bows are better. But in your backyard, you can take this test kit, and with 2 different spines and multiple field points, the bending rate of the arrows change every time you change a field point.
Yep.
And you can dial in your arrows a little bit better than just having one, and it flies sideways, and you own 15 of them now.
Right.
And I was like, wow, somebody could do this in their backyard and try to do that. So that's one of the things that's funny is Dr. Ed gets CNN too. And one of the most common things that Dr. Ed says, shoot the heaviest arrow for the trajectory that you find acceptable and the 12 factors.
You'll never hear that part ever. And I've had the Ashby people on here. Unfortunately, I think I told you this. Unfortunately, I had a 2-hour-long conversation, just me, just Dr. Ashby, and Dr. Ashby. He called in from his phone. I think.
Yeah, he's the best.
But
there's no technology, brother.
But it was such a good episode. It was mainly like how he became him, how everything happened, but then like kind of his like explanation of like the 12 factors and the whole thing. I don't know how it ever became that Ashby means 900 grain arrow or die. He's like, I've never said that. The foundation's never said that. I think he brought you up a lot too. We have never said if you are not shooting 650 or above, and if it's not a single bevel and it doesn't have the right this and that, if it's not full 12 factor, you suck.
Yeah.
He's like, that's never been our message,
said.
But that's what everyone thinks.
Right. So a couple of YouTubers have done some clickbait videos where it says that, the Ashby Foundation lies to you, sort of.
Yeah.
And the most common thing that comes up is, and it's in the study, Ed says it, I recommend you shoot the heaviest arrow with the highest forward to center that's acceptable for the trajectory that you find useful for your hunting situation.
Yeah.
However,
that last part is the part that gets...
No. However, this is not said, and this is later in the study. That does not eliminate the fact that 650 with all 12 factors is the top performing arrow system in all impact points at all distances, which he only checked 20. But the energy studies I've done showed that arrow is fantastic at 60.
Yeah.
So it's the difference between the practical side of Ed, which is shoot the heaviest arrow you can, but I recommend you get all the other factors too. That's total Ed. Ed's like the best guy ever. Mm-hmm. But when you're doing science and you read the graphs and you read the study, the 650 plus grain arrow in all situations outperformed everything else. Yeah. So pick your poison, right? Pick your poison. And I've got a video coming up. I got a bunch of crap because I post all the broken bones and stuff that people send. Some people are shooting 580 and they're still breaking humeruses off and stuff. And I've got another troll, and he's an idiot, and I'm not saying his name because I'm not helping him out. He's a complete idiot.
Right.
But he said, how come you keep posting, arrows that break below 650? See, Ed's wrong. No. In the study, and I've got it on there, and I repeated about 16 times, he said the percentage chance goes down as you go down in mass.
Yeah.
It doesn't eliminate it. It's not binary. Like if you go to 620, it's not going to ever break a bone. No, that's not true at all. But the propensity for over 19% single bevel, the tough Ed, by the way, the long one, not any other single bevel, the long one.
Yeah.
And the other factors was 100% bone breaching rate. And then below that, it walks down.
Yeah.
Still possible.
And I've heard that. I'm sure you've heard it a zillion times. Well, I put my rage through a shoulder. I put my rage split. Well, for instance, my buddy
That's
Tom.
That's what I say every time.
My buddy
Just
Tom.
Send me the pictures.
Yeah, he shot a doe, I think 2 years ago, and he shot it, sorry, Tom. He shot it industry standard lung shot, not a Vital V shot, lung shot, where everyone says to put it. And when we took that thing apart, because of you, I was like, let's look at this. Yeah. Let's see what it did. On the entry, that rage did cut through rib bone.
Of course.
Now, that people take that instance and then somehow, without any other data, anything else, they say, well, mine cut through a bone just fine. Well, put it in the shoulder, dude.
Yeah.
See what happens when you shoot that. And the other part, and I've said this with the Ashby people that drives me nuts, is when we talk about shooting a shoulder, I'm sure you've heard it a million times. Why are you shooting the shoulder? Why would you shoot that? Dude, it's not that I'm aiming there. It's that the animal moved. It's that there are 100 million variables that go into that 2-second window. Yep. Where you decide to let the release go and the animal has an arrow through it. Mm-hmm. There is a million things that change in that scenario. Yep. Not always. Sometimes you get them to sit still and
just take it like a man. Most of them don't.
Yeah. But if I shoot that Vital V, which you can't argue. I mean, that's where the heart is. That's where
physiologically it's the
system
most lethal place to kill anything from a mouse to an elephant. Absolutely.
Now that thing turns on me just half an inch. Now we're talking a different scenario, and that's where plan B. And it's like they don't listen to like plan B. They just think that everyone that shoots heavier arrows or that has that methodology, they think that you're always running on plan B, that plan B is actually my plan A. Yeah. And it's like, that's not at all what we're saying.
That's not at all what we're saying. Yeah. That's not at all what we're saying. The best shots in the world are right on the crease, right above the elbow. They go zip through. They don't hit anything hard. And you see dust behind them like a bullet went through them because it's going through them so fast. And they go 40 yards and go down, right?
I was going to say, then you see exactly where your deer is, so you don't have to chase him call a dog in.
But I talked about this yesterday on another podcast on that scenario. Was another thing I wanted to touch on is the shooting far thing. And one of the guys on the podcast is a pretty new hunter, and you could just see his brain melting. Like he hadn't had enough fairy dust before he got on. And his head was smoking, and he was super honest. Like I was bending his brain. And he said, okay, I hunt in Texas. I've got so many deer that I'm at 40. And I try to pick them off when they're circling around or moving around. I don't try to shoot them at the feeder. But sometimes there's one out there. So with a heavier arrow, I'm going to have a poorer trajectory. And my opportunity for misjudging range increases and hitting them bad. And then if they move, I wanted to get there faster. And he was being honest. He was processing. Yeah. And I said, well, first of all, you have a laser rangefinder. So that one's hard to get by. It really is. Mm-hmm. The second thing about misjudging one, say you laser it and it steps a couple, like it's 2 yards further or closer. I said, you basically admitted to me that they mostly jump the string, right? And he said, yeah, I'm scared of that. So, and like I said, he was a pretty new hunter. So I'm not knocking at you, Jake. So I said, okay, let's say it's 2 yards too far and the animal jumps the string. You're trying to get there faster to hit them closer to your intended point of impact. And he said, yeah. And I said, so what are you going to hit?
Yeah.
When the arrow gets there, what is going to get hit? Do you know for a fact that you're just going to hit them in the rib cage? Because if you do,
right,
I lose this argument.
Right.
The problem is they all move different. Some don't. Some roll. Some spin. Some drop and roll. Mm-hmm. Some of them stand there like a freaking 3D target, take it through the chops.
So that was my doe last year. Yeah.
Where do you aim? And what are you going to hit when it gets there?
Right.
Is your arrow system able to handle plan B? Is it?
Well, here's devil's advocate. I don't need a plan B because I'm a good shot.
Okay.
You hear that? You hear that often?
I do. And I hear it differently. So I hear you don't need a plan B arrow because the shot placement. Shot placement trumps plan B.
That's
very common.
Very
right?
common.
And I get that from a couple of the pros who I've gone ahead and burned down, and they don't freaking Instagram me anymore or pop up on my feed. But
well, damn.
Yeah, it's too bad. The trouble with that is the variability of the animals. So the assumption is you're messing with gravity.
Yeah.
And who is it? Dr. Kroll, I think. One guy did some test where he dropped balloons. It's the dumbest test on the planet. Because he proved gravity, which Newton's already done.
Right.
Because the animal variability in and of themselves, and he says it in other podcasts, some of them stand still, some of them spin, some of them don't spin, some of them roll, drop, this, that, the other. Dropping a balloon and calling it the 40-yard hold-off is ridiculous. It's gravity. It's a perfect constant. And he's gotten a bazillion views, and he leaves it up. And he's like a doctor guy. He's not stupid, right? But they leave it up for the monetization and then sucker everybody in, and that's totally dishonest because they prove gravity. You can go on a website, get Newton's formula, and figure it out until one doesn't drop, and then you shoot the ground.
Yeah.
or one drops a whole lot faster and you shoulder blade one, right?
Yeah.
Another thing about it is you're not going to get them all. You're better off going out in the woods, understanding you're not going to kill them all. I don't care what you're shooting, 900 grains, 2-inch wide single bevel, the Rage plus extra blades. You're not going to get them all. If you think the lion always wins and the coyotes always win, you're freaking crazy. You're insane. If it was 100% success rate for the predators, we'd have no deer.
Right.
They wouldn't exist, and neither would the coyotes, because they would eat themselves out of existence, right?
Right.
So you're just a predator, and we do our best, and we try to set up the best system we can and shoot them where they should die and let the chips fall where they may, right?
Yeah.
That's really challenging. And then when, further, you start to see these idiots shooting 60, 80, the guys who can do it, encouraging by posting videos of doing it, are really being irresponsible, because they're encouraging average people to shoot at elk and stuff at 80 yards. That's another one I get all the time. Yeah. I'm talking to a guy right now.
Yeah.
His outfitter told him to call me. So he drew an Arizona elk tag with one of the best outfitters out there. Okay. My buddy went hunting with the guy last year. He shot 530 grains, but he shot my broadhead, and he shot this bull a little bit forward and low in the shoulder, and it went 65 yards, and he broke the offside humerus.
Yeah.
The guide said, I've never seen anything like it. He guides. That's what he does for a living.
Yeah.
I've got a guy. He told him, listen, here's the deal. I saw this crazy arrow set up last year. It worked great. Call this guy. He calls me. I said, sure, I'll help you out. Crickets. His son drew the tag, and his son wants to shoot 60. So he's on the internet. And everything I'm saying is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said, the last conversation I had with him, I said, don't forget how this started. This is how bad it got. Your guide told you to call me. Second.
Yeah.
When that bull walks in at 17 yards and is called and is 1/4 and he shoulder blades one, not my problem. He drew a tag,
right.
But you don't get that tag every year. He's likely to never get it again in his life. And I'm not mad at the kid. I'm just like, the guide told you to call me. He's not a first year guide.
Right. Right.
So
well, and that kind of brings it back around, kind of what you were saying too, of like, what frustrates me so much with the hunting community, or not the hunting community, the hunting industry, is one, I oftentimes call out influencers, and this touches back on your comment of people being weak and people not having self-confidence. You're free to do whatever you want. I'm an American.
Yeah, that's right.
I love the Constitution. If you want your entire thing on Instagram to be, look at my logos, you're entitled to do that. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to watch you. But to come around too is, when you look at what you said, when you look at like what people are selling in the industry, the broadheads, the arrows, the arrow setups, the weight, the bows, the length of bows, blah, 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 all of that shit. When you look at someone like you that does testing on it and you put it out there, none of that stuff is, I won't say it doesn't work. Sure, it works, but it's not ideal. And we as hunters try to hold ourselves up as like, whoa, we're so ethical. Most of us. Ethics first. Ethics first. How unethical is it if you know, and it's been proven time and time again by guys like you, there are some other people, if you know that your 430 grain mechanical arrow can fail, where's that in the ethical conversation?
Well, we had this conversation I posted a video earlier this year on that. It's something that's been bothering me from a scientific aspect. The mechanical companies, and I posted this on the video, they post that you're 45 to 65 pounds of kinetic energy are kind of the recommended number. Okay? And I went, holy crap. Once I'd done the lab radar, most bows these days, say a 70-pound, 20.5 average size person, they're launching somewhere between 70 and 80 pounds of kinetic energy max at the bow. And it's slowing down every millisecond it goes forward. So you walk up to the store, you look at this broadhead, you say, ooh, 55 pounds of kinetic energy, I'm way over that. You scan it and you pay the man or lady at Walmart, right? You have now, you screw those onto your arrows and you have 20 pounds of kinetic energy to help you do anything. Because 50's gone. 50 pounds of kinetic energy are gone. And you read that on the package. Man, that's awesome. I'm going to lose 50 pounds of kinetic energy shooting this thing. Woo!
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Let's start there. Let's take let's cut all the points off our treble hooks and start fishing. I mean, it's bound to work. So, once I thought about that, I was like, that's actually terrifying. So let's say you launch at 80. Say you got a long draw length and a pretty fast bow. And it's 50 pounds of kinetic energy for your broadhead. So you have 30 pounds of kinetic energy to help you once it hits them. That's all you got left. It's about 35% of the total, 40% of the total kinetic energy is left over to help you once it makes impact. That's all. Less than half.
Yeah.
You tell me what odds you go play games where you're less than half. If you're drunk in Vegas, I get it.
Now, do you think?
But
well, oh yeah, of course. What do you think? So, like I said, for the listeners out there who don't agree with Ranch Fairy, don't agree with Ashby, hopefully you're still sticking around. But what do you think is the root cause? I have a handful of ideas, but when you present like what you just said, and I don't know if you specifically tested these things or not, but most of what you've said, damn near everything, well, I think everything you've ever put out there is your stance on whatever it is. Usually it's arrow and broadhead related. You've tested it.
Yep.
Why do you think so many people will say, Ranch Fairy's an idiot? He doesn't know what he's talking about. The rage people on the commercial said that, you're going to get a red carpet blood trail, you're this and that. Is it because people are, why don't people gravitate towards the facts that are being presented? And why do they prefer to take what somebody who's getting paid by, you name the company, like you said, this shooter who's been on an Olympic level or who is a professional, who can hit a 12 ring 3D every day, which is exceptional. Why is that the only reason why they listen to them over a guy like you? What do you think the root cause is? Because you put so much, you and the Ashby Foundation specifically put out so much information that backs up what you say, but they will say, you guys are idiots. The packaging said this on this product, and sorry, I don't give a shit. Levi Morgan is selling this, so Levi obviously knows what he's talking about.
Right, but he's Levi.
Because
are you Levi?
Right.
Like that's how I think. So I'm a complete outlier in the way that my head works. I'm not an 80% person.
Yeah.
I am currently trying to figure out. I put out a goal. I'll get back to the arrows in a second. I'll get back to your question. 4 years ago, I decided I was going to catch a 10-pound bass. It took me 4 years, and I caught a 10.5 May a year ago. And I've got one lake I've been fishing that owes me a 10-pound bass. So I keep fishing there. Just the other day, and I keep dialing in things on. Right now, I'm throwing Texas rig a lot and on some rock and blah, blah, blah. And I stuck one the other day that was probably over 6. And the hook that I was using was the fail point. It wasn't a big enough hook for the fish that I hooked. And it's not a big enough hook for a 10-pound bass, but you might catch a 10-pound bass on it.
Yeah.
I caught multiple 2-pound fish with this particular hook I was using, only penetrated to the barb. And they're only 2-pounders.
Yeah.
There's not a 10-pound bass, and I want to catch big fish. I don't care about the 2-pound. I flip them over my head and keep firing, right?
Yeah.
So it's those little minute details that I care about, and that's the 20% that may cost you. So I think the herd is safer than the guy going against the herd. Nobody wants to be that guy. And I've been that guy my whole freaking life. There's something wrong with me. I know it. I've liked that at work. I've had to learn to not say the obvious thing because I'm sitting there going, yo, elephant, like right there.
Yeah.
We like the feet and the toenails. We want to play with the trunk. Yeah, I got that, but you know?
Yeah.
So there's an overwhelming amount of information, unfounded, untested, but successful enough. And that's what I think that guy I'm talking about with the elk guy, his kid's probably on his phone going, that's the only guy saying that stuff.
Yeah.
Where everyone else is saying, I've killed elk, I've killed 100 elk, I just shoot them with a field point, none of that crap matters, I kill them all the time, never lost one. Never is also 100%. Those people say never need to get a grip. But I really do think it's a terrifyingly that's the only reason my channel got big is because I'm so out there, right? And the hunting public guys launched me. There's no doubt about that. And those dudes are great. But it's just safer to do what everybody else is doing. It is. If you're shooting one of my arrow systems at a 3D tournament, just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And don't let anybody touch your arrows because they'll freak out. If you knock a target over, just apologize.
Well, to that point, my first year at Total Archery Challenge, I was shooting my lighter arrows that were 585. Mm-hmm. And I got a handful of comments saying, God, your bow's quiet.
Yeah.
What do you got on your bow to make it quiet? Mm-hmm. Dude, I got the cheapest Trophy Ridge stabilizer that I could possibly get. Yeah. I'm shooting a Mission Switch bow.
Yeah, right.
It ain't the bow.
Yeah, bows are just launchers. They don't matter. But yeah,
but then you say it's my arrows. I shoot 585. Holy shit! Why would you bring a 585 here? What are you? Why are you even shooting that heavy? Do you hunt with that?
Yeah.
Like, do you know how slow your arrows get into the animal?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to discredit the fact that a moving animal can move pretty damn quick. Mm-hmm. And I'm not the smartest guy, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I test things to the extent that you do. I watch what you do and listen. Yeah. But when you're talking about feet per second, my bow at that time at a 585 shot, I was shooting an Easy V sight, mm-hmm. thanks to you again. Great sight.
I love that thing.
Seems like a total gimmick, but
it's not.
It is not. It's legit.
It's legit.
But so I'm shooting those heavier arrows, and I'm looking at like feet per second, and to a simple mind like myself, it was 275 feet per second was what my bow was shooting.
Kidding.
At least that's the insert
for an arrow that heavy.
Well, so because I wasn't shooting 305, I wasn't over 3. I've got a slow arrow. A lot of people will say 250, 275 is a slow arrow. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, if I'm just doing the math in my head, which again, I wasn't top of my class, right? If my arrow is moving 275 feet per second, mm-hmm. and if I understand what that calculation is, and maybe I don't, 275 feet in 1 second is not slow.
No.
I'm not lobbing a softball.
Mm-hmm.
Is my trajectory worse than yours? I guess.
I will tell you something that's interesting
a rainbow?
about trajectory, though. So, due to ballistic coefficient, right around 600, I had to actually shoot a faster insert on the EZV than the speed of the bow, because the parabola that the arrow flies on is more consistent over distance.
Right.
And I actually confirmed this with my friend's pins. So my friends that shoot around 550 to 600, when you go to 700, your pins look more like a 350 grain arrow. They're very tight, and then they go, and they open up. Because on a really light arrow, the atmosphere is eating it up. And at long distance, it actually starts dropping like crazy. Past 60, if your pins are opening up, that is it. And so the argument goes out the toilet. Just because your first four are so close together, you can't get them apart. When they start to open up, you're having to manage a different gap every time further out. That's hard on your brain. Yeah. But a heavier arrow, right around 550 to 600, actually has a very consistent parabola. And if you'll do it with pins, you'll see the gaps they stay pretty consistent. They're a little more open, but the arrow just kind of arches. So it doesn't take off on as flat a shot line out of the bow. It actually goes above the shot line of a lighter arrow, but it gets there kind of the same. It just rainbows a little more. Yeah. And pins are pins, and 20 still 20. 40 still 40.
Well, and that's another thing. A lot of the people that argue this stuff are whitetail hunters. And you can get into the argument when you're talking to elk hunter, hey, I need to shoot 80, I need to shoot 90, blah, 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 blah.
You can become a better hunter and get closer.
I was just going to say, one of the most memorable and best comments that I heard when I was talking to Dr. Ashby was when he was talking about that situation. Well, I shoot elk at 90. I shoot, I'm trying to shoot speed goats and they're 110 yards away. That's as close as I can get. And he said, or you can be a better hunter and get closer. That was one of the best, like I said, one of the best like mic drop moments of that unfortunate episode that will never see the light of day. But on that point too, I want to touch back on how we're watching the best archers in the world take these 80-yard shots, and everyone thinks that they should be able to take the 80-yard shot, and then they buy the same stuff, and then they fail. And it's usually, well, I ranged it wrong. Well, the wind. Well, this or that. It's like, well, maybe you're not a Levi Morgan shot.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe you're not a Chris B shot. Maybe you're not a John Dudley shot. Yep. Why do we continue? And it drives me nuts, and which is why I've gravitated towards your stuff, because I'm the same way. I looked at the Easy V and I was like, that's different. I'm getting that. I don't need you to tell me what it does different or why it's different. I just want to do it differently. Yep. I was a punk rock kid back in the day. I've always been that way, but I wish that we would get more realistic with ourselves and our abilities. And that's the aim of what you do is you can do what Levi Morgan does and you can follow it to a T, but your results are not going to be the same because you are not Levi Morgan.
You're not.
Now, instead of doing all that crap, let's look at yourself for who you are. You're an average archer. You're in an average situation. You have average odds in terms of, if you're hunting public land. Let's look at the reality of what average looks like.
Yep.
Let's not look at what the professionals can do. Right. Let's look at what the average people do. And that's where you come into play. And that's where it blows my mind that so many people are so against what you're doing when you're just, I remember when we were talking, I was trying to bear shaft tune and I was trying to do some of the tuning things that you recommend. And I remember the bow shop was like, what are you doing? Just paper tune it. And I was like, well, I think that paper tune can lie. I don't think that's really telling me I want my arrow to be shooting straight. Yeah, but you don't need to you just need to paper tune it. And I'm like, I don't know. But it frustrates me that so many people just accept that. They don't care to look into it. And it kind of goes back to my one question of like, why do you think people just follow along and they don't? Is it that people just don't want to put in the work and the time to do it?
There's some of that. Some people just want their stuff all packaged up and ready to go. And I can't beat those people. You never will. And then the shop guys don't want to spend the time to do it. And they don't offer any adjustments. So unfortunately, I'm not really trying to bash on the shops, but I've been in a pile of them. over the years. And they generally say, hey, here's how you're going to set your bow up. We're going to go 280. So whatever it takes to go 280, we're going 280. Well, if you cut the fletchings off whatever's 280 and it goes sideways, they say, that don't mean nothing. Fletchings, watch this.
Fletchings will catch it up. Yeah.
That's not true at all. The bending rate of the bear shaft is much worse because it doesn't have fletch. I got that. But it's still launching in that weird-ass position, and the fletchings are just hiding it. And I've done it. I've done it on video. We shot a 300 spine arrow with a 300 grain point bear shaft at about 20 yards, and it went through the paper, nose up, and tore a foot on a high-speed camera. It was crazy. I thought it was going to fly like that. It actually took off, the nose went up, and it tore a foot through the paper like that. It was very stable. Like, it wasn't wobbling, wasn't spiraling. It just went dong and flew just like that downrange and hit the paper. I put one of the smallest fletching sets I could find on it, and it almost bullet holed. You can't tell me that arrow's not launching like this and the fletchings aren't taking it out, because we got the video actually. It actually went like that and sort of stabilized. Yeah. And there's another factor there that the paper, if you hit the paper right, the paper could actually grab the shaft a little bit and straighten it up because the paper will flex away. So the only you can shoot through paper. I have a knock tuning video where you actually you can shoot through paper, shoot a target, and turn the knock with fletched. Mm-hmm. But you have got to shoot your broadheads, or you'll know real fast if that tune worked.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'll be alarming, or it won't, right? It won't. Yeah. But it'll be alarming if you're shooting a decent fixed blade broadhead. Everybody says, "Oh, Matt, broadhead fly," but this one doesn't. No, not really.
I like that. Well, I would shoot a fixed blade, or I'd shoot a 2-blade single bevel, but they don't group with my broadheads. So there's something wrong with the broadhead.
Yeah, of course. The field points and the broadheads don't group together. And so you don't think, well, maybe it's the arrow system. Well, I got to say this. For as theoretical big audiences I have, we haven't reached 80% of bow hunting, I don't think. Or 70% of them have heard anything about anything I talk about. They've heard I'm an idiot, see the memes, and just write it off. Right? People are busy, too. Right. So just being human is part of it. But I tried to offer just a different opportunity to take the next step. If I get somebody to advance one step, just maybe shoot every single arrow through paper, not just one. I think that's the greatest. They just did a clip with a Rogan clip came up, and he lives here, and he goes to the shop that I go to, and he was in there, and he's got his bow, and he talks about the bow, blah blah blah, and he shoots it through paper, and they'd obviously tweaked it a little bit because they had some tears in there, and one of them was just a bullet hole, and he goes, "Man, that's the way you want to do it." And I'm like, fine. For that arrow.
Right.
That doesn't mean the whole set's tuned.
Right.
He doesn't even probably know that. And I don't know that the shop guys told him to shoot all of them. You'd be better off standing in the shop and shoot every single arrow. I'd tell you to do it with a broadhead through paper in your whole set and turn the nocks. Then do reps and work on your form. Yeah. Because if the arrow group isn't consistent, I don't care what your form is. Number 1, number 6, and number 8 don't shoot the same. They don't bend the same. Yeah. Well, if you knew it'd be like playing golf and having to hit a half knockdown wedge as opposed to a full swing. If you knew what form to do for number 8 and you had to hold your head a little sideways like that, then fine. But it's a little impractical in a hunting situation.
Yeah. I actually have heard guys talk about they have a ledger that they bring with them, and they write down how they have to do each different arrow in case they have whatever arrow. No, I know that. I numbered my arrows, and arrow number 5, I got to do this. Arrow number 7, that one flies okay. This one over here, you got to use a little of this. I've heard that, yes.
Wow.
Which to me, I mean, and granted, to me it's obvious because I have my entire hunting archery career. I have been watching you and videos with the hunting public with you and the Ashby Foundation. So to me, that seems obvious. I think to a lot of people who don't watch you and don't pay attention to Ashby, that doesn't seem that weird.
No.
They haven't been exposed.
2014 or 15, I didn't know any of this stuff. I got Big Mike Tanaka, I got the Rocket Man, I got Ed, and they've all helped me tremendously. I'm just in a lot of ways, I'm the mouthpiece. And then, like I said, I'm not an 80% guy. So I'm weird enough to, I've got 2 test labs. I got one down the street. I can always go out there and go. I'll literally be sitting here and go, I gotta know. So I'll drive out there and go sling about 10 arrows and whatever. And I hate getting a new dozen because I can't go backwards. Right. I got to stand there and bare shaft and knock tune every damn one of them because I know what it looks like when they aren't right.
Yeah. Well, and so to that, I wanted to ask this question as just kind of a bridge to what you're saying from guys who don't know what you're talking about yet. I think at a starting point, I think that your average guy would say, I don't want to sit out there for X amount of hours and shoot every single arrow and knock tune every single arrow. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, but they'll shoot 100 practice arrows. There's my answer.
Right. Yeah.
There's my answer.
But so my question, just like I said, to bridge this, because I think that you got to go past the obvious here. Yeah. When you shoot, first of all, a statement, paper tuning with your field point versus your broadhead. You can't really properly paper tune with a field point if you want to make sure your hunting arrow is perfect.
It's 100% fact. That's one reason to shoot like adult broadheads that are steel and sharpenable, even if they're 3 blades or whatever, because you can shoot them 100 times. Right. So you could take one broadhead, your whole dozen, shoot one broadhead through paper, knock tune them with broadheads, and then sharpen that broadhead back up. You ain't doing that with the Rage. And I promise you, there is some drag with the Rage. Yeah. But they are more accurate, generally speaking, because they're more aerodynamic.
Right. So here's a question from someone. Like I said, I'm trying to play the devil's advocate here. So we talked about when you're tuning an arrow, if you bare shafted it sideways, but you throw a good set of fletchings on it, that arrow's flying straight. Okay. Those fletchings are covering up a badly tuned bow and badly tuned arrows. Mm-hmm. So we can start from that point. You can't argue that. Fletchings will cover up a lot. Now, here's my devil advocate question, and I'm sure you have a good answer to kind of bring it home, is if I put fletchings on and it straightens out my arrow to where it's paper tuning correctly, let's just throw the bare shaft out the window. Yep. When I have fletchings, which when we hunt with, we will have fletchings. Okay. If it straightens that arrow out, then what's the point? What's the difference?
Put a broadhead
if it's already fixing.
Put a broadhead on it. If it will fly a broadhead and you accept the amount of accuracy it gives to your maximum hunting range, then you win. I can't win that one. If it works with a broadhead and all of them.
Now, are you saying with a single bevel type, a 2-blade type, or are you talking any broadhead?
Whatever fixed blade broadhead you want. There's 9 million of them and whatever. Let's just say you're just going to shoot some random 125 grain, like a Magnus Stinger or something. Normal broadheads, right? Yeah. Nothing crazy.
Yep.
Replaceable, but cut on contact. If it flies sideways bare shaft, but you put a fletch one on, and it will shoot to your maximum hunting distance and is as accurate as you think it should be, you win. But the percentage of people who can get away with that it's absolutely minuscule. And then I'd still go back to, instead of shooting a lot of reps, I would still take one broadhead and I'd run every single arrow you might hunt with. So that's what I do is I set up my hunting arrows and I shoot the big, long, tough head most of the time. Mm-hmm. I have 5 of them that I never shoot. So they've been bare shafted, they've been knock tuned. They're all glued together too. They're 713 grains. and I JB welded the heads onto a insert that glued into the head, so I can't get them apart. Okay.
Yeah.
Then I shot them all 5 with the broadheads out to 40 with fletched. Okay. They all shot fine. I sharpened them up, put them up, never touched them. The last time I shot them, I shot a pig with the meat eater guys with them. Those are my serious wampum arrows. And then farting around arrows, blah, blah, blah. My son's been hunting with me lately and shooting some other stuff. So I just don't shoot my hunting arrows. But if you're going to be one of those people who's got 12 arrows and you might shoot any of them and just screw broadheads on, then take one of the broadheads and run the whole set. And if one of them tears weird, the first thing you should do is not look at the bow. Make sure your shot release was decent. Like sometimes you twitch or whatever, just throw that one out and shoot it again, right? It's fine. You're human. If it tears a little bit, rotate the knot. I have a video called 4 Fletch Tuning on my channel. And you just rotate the knock in between the vanes. They can't hit the cables. 3 Fletch has 3 positions, 4 has 4, blah, blah, blah. And just see if that helps. But rather than doing 50 practice shots with all this stupid stuff at 6 yards and closing your eyes and all this stuff, if the arrows aren't consistent across the set, it would be like hand loading your 30-06 and randomly putting the powder in there and shooting at 500 yards.
Yeah.
That's exactly, that's a perfect analogy. That if you had a grain scale that was pretty damn close but not real good, and you were kind of sloppy and put it in there and half drunk, and you just didn't care. And you didn't seek the bullets at the same depth and kind of mash them in there, and so one of them was way out front or whatever. And then you expected perfect accuracy at 500. That's exactly the same as not spending the time with your whole arrow set and making sure that they fly broadheads. If you're going to shoot all of them.
Yeah.
I don't do that. I haven't done that for 10 years. I didn't do that before. When I didn't understand how to make arrows fly and the bending rates and all the stuff I know now, I would find the ones that flew the best and I would put them aside with broadheads.
Yeah.
And I would shoot the rest of them. Because field points are liars. Absolute 100% liars. They just don't have the same lifting mechanism. This is another thing that blew that kid's mind the other day. I said, when I do talks, I've got an arrow that's about this long. And I've got 2-inch vanes on the back and 1-inch vanes. I got a field point and an insert, and I glued 1-inch vanes on the front. And I said, do you think that'll fly? And everybody laughs. And I said, that's a fixed blade broadhead that's 1.25 inches wide. You guys are trying to fly that. And you just see the whole audience go, shoot, I'll never thought of that. It should shoot. An arrow with a 125 grain point and small vanes on the front should shoot just like a fixed blade broadhead with vanes on the back. And the kid on that podcast the other day goes, God, I never thought of that. And I was like, yeah, until I hold it up, nobody puts it together, right?
Yeah.
I got to do that. I got to make a video on that.
I think that'd be great.
Because it's just like it's a big fixed blade. Nowadays, everybody can the wide freaking single bevels and all this BS. It's so dumb. So dumb. Even the company that sponsors me making the wide, it's dumb. It just you're getting like an eighth of an inch wider. It's not like 1.5 inches.
I know. What is the trend with that? And I asked the Ashby people this too. Why? I think one of the things I sent you that I wanted to talk about is one of the big controversial things in bow hunting is fixed blade versus mechanical. And I had this conversation, I can't remember who it was with, and I said, I don't really think that is where that argument should lie. Mm-hmm. I almost feel like it should be 2-blade single bevel versus everything else. Because I think when you look at the testing that's been done between you, Ashby, other guys, I think it's quite clear, and most people won't disagree that a heavy single bevel is probably that's flying correctly.
Yeah, it's a 375 H&H, right, on North American game.
You know, what do you, I mean, you can't really argue against it. you can come with all these other arguments lower level, but that's kind of your starting point, or that's kind of your end goal or your end point. Is a single bevel is kind of like the top of the top in terms of performance on bone.
It's the Barnes X bullet,
whatever.
right? It's the X bullet of archery. That's absolutely true.
So why is there? Because I've noticed this from heavy arrows. So I'm not trying to like talk crap or call people out, but from Sirius, from different. I don't know if Grizzly Stick does. I would assume. All of your companies who are kind of more known for a heavier arrow type setup. Why are they coming out with 3 blades when they know better? Basically, I guess.
So I address this on why I have a Ranch Fairy 3 blade. And this is my I want you to take a couple of steps forward deal. It's very hard to jump. You're an odd dude because you jumped right in the freaking pool. Most people go to 125 grain. Then they dare to put a 50.
Yeah, that blows people's minds.
Then they dare to put 50 grain inserts in. And they walk it up, right? You're actually better off leaving a standard insert in your shaft and shooting a 200 grain point if it'll handle it spine than you are by adding insert weight. So I came out with the 3 blade. It's only an inch and a 16th wideness, as long as we could make it. So it's got good angle of attack. It's not short and blunt, but it's stupid easy to sharpen. So sharpening is intimidating for single bevels for people. Most people don't know how to sharpen knives anymore, right?
Right.
So if you could go from a modular Muzzy Thunderhead type of broadhead with crappy blades on it, and then go to something that's made out of steel, one piece, long and narrow, not much narrower than your short, stupid punch point one that's going to come apart on you at the end of bone, but longer for better angle of attack. It is not a single bevel, but you have just catapulted yourself forward miles. If you can sharpen it, it's really simple to do. So you get sharp, you get durable edges, you get a pretty steep angle on the blades. It's essentially a 60 degree because it's 30 on both sides. That is debatable, but you can, because you're sharpening with the edges, the edge is perfect. Like it's perfectly angled. So you get them real sharp.
Yeah.
They don't bend, they don't break. And most of the time they're going to whistle through and skip off in the woods. You're going to be pissed off because your damn broadhead's 50 yards past the animal and you can't find it in the mud.
Right.
So you've just taken an Aaron Snyder and I talked about this. It's a great analogy. It's all his idea. He said, I like to start with an A+ arrow system and hope it only erodes to B.
Yeah.
But if you start with a B+ arrow system, it's going to C-, D.
Yeah.
And mostly it was a broadhead discussion in the fact that broadhead edges and broadheads, the steel on a sharpness level, there's only 2 things that happen at impact. They either stay sharp and keep going, or they dull and keep going. They erode the edge quality at impact. There isn't sharper, and shredded blades are not your friend from a medical standpoint. So
on that point, I've had this discussion with somebody before who is not a heavy arrow hater, but they're a mid-range person.
They're in the closet right now. They're wondering what's in the closet. Right.
They're
happy medium.
You know,
that's what they call it.
I hunt with like a 5'10" type of person. However, they'll shoot a single bevel iron will, and this is where my question stems from. How important is the sharpness over the, let's just say I don't want to say the other 12. I don't know how to present this right. I want to say over the other 12 factors if we're talking Ashby 12 factors. But we've had this conversation that a dull or a shitty broadhead at 5'10" versus a razor sharp, a Ranch Fairy sharp single bevel versus that same broadhead but dull. We've had the argument that the sharp one's going to perform, like the sharp one's where it's at, the dull one makes a shitty arrow.
Of course. You have no factors. If the broadhead's dull, you've killed all the other factors. That's how it works.
Yeah.
It pops the balloon.
So here's where is basically the argument was you don't need 650. You can shoot, let's just say 470. You can shoot 470 as long as you have a razor sharp single bevel.
Until plan B. That is actually accurate. That's 100% accurate. In normal hits, normal shot angles, not on a quartering-to bull elk at 26 yards because he's coming to the call. And you shoot him back behind the crease because that's what you got. You're going to gut shoot him and he's gone. Right? In a scenario where the shot placement's decent, let's say on the crease, a little behind it, broadside, quartering away, I will tell you 1,000 times, yeah, you're fine. Until something happens.
Yeah.
And I've had too many things happen. I've said this on 1,000 podcasts. When mechanicals work, there ain't nothing like it, brother. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've had guts hanging out the sides, blood sprayed up knee high on trees. Phenomenal. When they fail, they're equally as phenomenal. There isn't any middle.
Yeah.
I never had middle. I never had hit them okay or hit them pretty good, okay blood trail, 90 yards. I either had devastation, blood spraying everywhere, or a very peculiar set of, I don't even know what happened. Why is there no blood? Why did I lose them? And especially the pigs. The rib cage on the pigs, the ribs themselves. Next time you got a rack of ribs in front of you, just look at the ribs. They're thick and they're short.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They eat them alive and they destroy the blade's sharpness because the approach angles are so steep. They actually are cleavering into it, and the steel is made in China. Let's just call it what it is. Yeah. And there's no way it can handle it. I don't know that this S7 would handle it because of the angle. Yeah. Right? It's not cutting, it's slamming. It's like take a sharp hammer. It's more like that. If you took a hammer and sharpened it down to really thin to make a cutting instrument, a cleaver essentially, that angle for chopping is really not how it works. And it sure as hell isn't any good in the internal organs. You need cutting. You don't need chopping.
All right, guys, let's take a quick break to go through the friends of the show. First and foremost, we have More Innovations. More Innovations is an awesome 3D printing company. They're making equipment that goes on your bow press, little caddies, things like that, to keep track of all of your tools and your thread and your parts so you're not losing those. They have wall mount quivers like I got right behind me over here, so you can keep your arrows in the wall, whether it's in the garage or in your shooting shed, whatever it may be. And then they also have, this is one of my favorite things. I always talk about that grenade pen holder, and the 5-arrow pocket quiver. He's just got a lot of really cool 3D printed things that are really great tools for us as archers to have. Check out moreinnovations.com. Use code all caps AFCO10. That will get you 10% off over at More Innovations. Secondly, we got Adams Precision Archery. They are basically just killing it. They came out today with it's like a half-tone comic book feel wrap that they did on a build, and it is just awesome. So if you're in the market for a new set of arrows, check out adamsprecisionarchery.com. If you use code all caps AFCO10, that's going to save you 10% off on your arrow build. Let him know if you want to do the fanny pack, you can do that as well. But that comic book wrap they put out, that's pretty sweet too. So check it out at adamsprecisionarchery.com. Thirdly, Buzzard Roost saddles. It is the most adjustable, most comfortable saddle that your butt will ever sit in. Get yourself one now, whether you're new to saddle hunting and you want to try one out, or you've been saddle hunting for a while and you're just not quite happy with yours. Buzzard Roost will be the most comfortable saddle that you sit in. You can sit in it from an hour to 8 hours, doesn't matter. Any adjustment you need to make, you can make it, and you're back in the game. Go to buzzardroostsaddles.com and use code AAFP10 for 10% off your saddle over at buzzardroostsaddles.com. Our Grounds Coffee Co., still the official coffee of the AFCO podcast, and they are back at it, guys. The roaster's in. Ed is gearing up to start putting coffee back out to the masses. I'm super excited for that. So make sure you guys keep an eye out when that coffee starts coming back out. Until then, continue to help him out. Buy merch, go to the website, help him out however you can. If you want to use code all caps AFCO, that's going to save you 15% at ourgroundscoffeeco.com. Quick Camo, Quick Camo. I use their stuff during turkey season, so if you are looking for a leafy suit, they have hats with masks that are already built into them that I really liked during turkey season. They've also got really great gloves, great quality gloves. You can get fingerless, you can get touchscreen gloves. I bought the touchscreen, ended up cutting the fingers off, but either way, their quality is great. It's just a great equipment to have in your toolbox for when you're out in the woods. So check out quickcamo.com. If you use code all caps AFCO10, that'll get you 10% off at Quick Camo. And finally, Pursuit Energy. Guys, Pursuit Energy is the #1 hunting branded energy drink. It tastes great. It gives you the energy you need. My favorite is personally the Zero Orange. I'm just a big orange fan. But whether you like the zero stuff, zero sugar, or if you like stuff with the sugar, either way, they got you covered. They have a bunch of really great flavors. My second favorite is grape. But go on the website, go to pursuitenergy.com. You can either buy them in 4 or 8 packs, I believe, or you can sign up for the subscription so that it just gets sent to your door, whatever time frame you choose, and then you don't even got to worry about ordering it every month. So check out pursuitenergy.com. Get yourself hooked up with Pursuit and fuel your pursuit. So guys, that is it for the friends of the show. Let's hop back into the conversation. So changing topics, one of the controversial things that I was curious about is your opinion, because you have videos with the THP guys. Obviously, they're great. I like that as they've gotten bigger and, arguably the biggest YouTube hunting channel there is, they haven't kind of been like, we're going to distance from anything weird because we want to keep growing. They've stayed pretty true to, this is what we see work. This is what we're doing.
They're good dudes, man. I'm not kidding. I'm not saying that because they're my friends. They're good dudes to be around. And
they seem like it. Now, I've heard this, if we're talking controversial, and I'm using them as an example because, like I said, I think they're probably the biggest one out there. In the past, let's say 3 years, I have heard arguments from older hunters, or maybe not older in age, but older in experience, that the internet, YouTube, THP, Seek One, all of these big channels, they have ruined hunting. What is your opinion on that? I think the argument is, you think they ruined it?
No, they've helped so much, and they've expanded the audience, and they've brought new hunters, and they've taught people how to do stuff. So it's a short-sighted.
But new hunters are shooting my deer.
That's too bad. It's public property. Good luck. Everybody owns it. It's like fishing, right?
Yeah.
So my passion in this world is the Padre Island National Seashore. And back in the day, there was no information. You had to earn it. 60 miles of sand, wind blows, mud, grass. Sometimes it's muddy, sometimes it's not. Learn all about the way the water's moving and the tides and all this crazy crap. And I spent a ton of time with a guy who's a guide down there paying for trips, and then got to be friends with him and got coaching. And I'll never forget seeing the first message board I ever saw, and I said, the National Seashore is screwed.
Yeah.
Because the people aren't better. They're just not afraid to go down there. So there's a shitload more of them.
Yeah.
They're terrible fishermen. Like, they were the worst.
Yeah.
And they're doing what everybody else does, which is fine because I don't. And we still do really well down there. So the technological thing, you'll never get past it, but it's a short-sighted mentality that's still self-focused. Once again, back to the thing we were talking about, the pros and stuff. First of all, if you're hunting public, too bad. Sorry, It's public. It's just like bass fishing and stuff. It's public. You can't do nothing about that. And second, they've brought so many people into the sport.
Yeah.
We're going to get to keep hunting.
Yeah.
Because of demand. You can't tell me that there aren't 900 kids who sees Ted driving a car in the mud and dragging a deer on it and putting it on the roof that doesn't want to do that.
Right. Yeah.
But they kind of prove you don't need to have a big jacked up Toyota truck and have big labels on the side and all that. They just drive whatever the hell they want.
Yeah.
They had that one car called the Turd or the Smurf or something like that.
Yeah, Smurf.
The Smurf. They wanted to bring it to the ranch and blow it up. And I was like, oh, man, I don't have a dump big enough for a car.
Right.
They wanted to blow it up at the ranch. And that's what makes them genuine. But there's no stopping it, and it helps the whole bow hunting world. I mean,
yeah.
I don't like the fact that, I mean, there's some tricky stuff that goes on in some of the lakeside fish because I don't fish very big lakes. And there's a couple of guys who post every detail that they're doing.
Yeah.
Well, I used to kind of go, come on, man. Now I go, wonder what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I just leverage the information.
Yeah.
On the flip side, God help them, they're genuinely helping people, to my point. And the fish are doing one thing today, and 2 days later they're not.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't, you know what? It doesn't really matter. And I would say also to those people, if you bass fish, should the pros talk about anything they do, or should they just hide all that stuff?
Right.
In the bass fishing world, every bit of data is out there. Now, on this particular day that the pros are that good, that they're the 1%ers that figure it out, that's the trick. But they'll tell you every trick that they do. It's just not necessarily applicable to every situation, every lake that they go to. They don't always do that.
Yeah.
There's something else going on, or something changes, right? Or it gets muddy or whatever.
Yeah. That's always, it's a topic that's always bothered me, because if you look at it, like, you see, usually people are saying the internet and COVID is ruining hunting because there's so many people out there. You can't blah, 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 blah. And I kind of take I'm not easily offended, but I kind of take offense to that, because while I didn't start hunting because of COVID, I did start in that time frame. Yep. And I also look at it like a comment you made from an American standpoint.
Yep.
Gosh dang it. We're fighting an uphill battle versus society and culture. And aside from maybe a few parts in the Bible where God was the one actually doing the fighting, when you win a fight, it's because you have more people on your side.
Yep.
And I was curious your interpretation of it. I was kind of sure this is what you would say, but.
Well, I have another little bit of a spin on that. Should we ever face legislative action against hunting? Do you know who's got the data? One source.
Yeah.
The foundation is there's the only data set supporting what arrows work the best.
Yeah.
With a 30 years of testing.
Which is significant.
Right. And I have challenged a couple of on the sidelines, and I've actually started lighting a couple of people up who are pros, and they've shot all the sheep, the guys we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And I said, if he's wrong, spend the money, go to Australia.
Yeah.
Repeat the test and shoot the old flat.
Yeah.
But take an Ashby with you. And what we're finding in the Ashby testing, now that we've done 2 more years, now we're doing compounds. So Rob Nielsen, the president of the foundation, has been to Zambia, and then he just got back from Argentina and shot those are the big buffaloes. They're bigger than Cape Buffalo. And even the data's still coming back the same. Longbow to con, he shoots 80 pounds. I think he's a 27.5-inch draw. Got a hopped up Matthews or something. I don't know what it is. And the short, blunt broadheads are not doing as well when you shoot the longer, the tough head and an Ed arrow, even at 650 grains, it's still outperforming everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's still the gold standard. Yeah. So what will happen is if one of these nitwit companies decides to spend the money to prove it, they'll just lie to us.
Yeah.
They will not shoot an Ed arrow. Or they'll
Right.
shoot an untuned Ed arrow, and they know what they're doing, and it'll
Yeah.
fly sideways.
Well, that's one thing that that I found interesting when looking at his original study and everything, over the years, usually you study something in the 70s, 80s, whatever, and then it comes to 2020 and there's advances in this and that and blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
while his study was correct for the time,
that's one of the arguments against it.
Nowadays, we have, but if you still look at the continuation of the studies that Ed's not doing anymore himself, it's gone on to the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
It's really cool, I think, that what he found back then
mm-hmm.
pretty much still rings true today. And I mean, that's to speak to the thoroughness of his testing, his throughout when he was doing it. It's not really changed.
Well, I'll tell you why. Because Newton.
Yeah.
So for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. So what we have done, and you can do, is you can make Ed's arrow go faster now.
Yeah.
Much faster, actually. And the drag equation includes velocity squared. Now, drag is air, drag is meat, drag is bones, drag is whatever. So if you go faster, the drag goes up v squared. So yes, you got there faster, and the drag, velocity squared, goes up.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, Barnett and I have talked about this a lot. He really does believe, and we haven't done the math yet, that there's probably a speed where you start to actually go backwards.
Yeah.
You only gain trajectory. Now, we're not talking about 50% backwards. We're just talking percentages backwards.
Right.
It's not a huge reduction. In fact, I would believe it'd be worth having the trajectory.
Yeah.
Right? But Rob's shot like 7 or 8 K Buffalo. I don't know how many now. 9, 10, I don't know. And done a lot of testing. And he was shooting 900 grains because he was trying to get to 31% forward to center. That's the only reason he was at 900. And one of the arrows the trackers couldn't find shot completely through a Cape Buffalo, and it went off in the woods, and even the trackers couldn't find it.
Jeez.
It was a ground blind, but nonetheless, it just went zip, and it kept on booking, and they never found the arrow.
Yeah.
And that was on a live hunted Cape Buffalo, and it went 30 yards and fell over. One of the interesting things he did this year, he shot the lightest shaft he could find. I think he was only at like 750, but his forward to center was up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he shot the Tough Head Evolution, which is a short, 200 grain broadhead.
Yeah.
And he shot his buffalo in Argentina with it. And he said it seemed like it took it a long time to die. I don't know what that was, minutes or hours, or what. I don't think it was hours. I think it was just tipped over and laid there and flopping around.
Yeah.
And man, when you shoot a 3-inch long blade that's rotating, it's on the meat and arteries and airways a long time. Like if half the blade gets damaged, you still have 1.5 inches that isn't.
Right.
But if the actual cutting edge on a short broadhead is only 1.5 inches long, you only have, 3/4 of an inch that's sharp.
Yeah.
And if it's the front, then the broadhead's only this wide, right?
Yeah.
Or if the back gets damaged, like goes between two ribs and say the back gets ripped, dulled, then your broadhead's only 1/2 inch wide because the front's sharp.
Yeah.
And it doesn't cut everything.
Yeah.
That long tough head, when you hit them right, God, nothing. They hate that thing. It kills the hell out of them. It's amazing.
I can't remember. I've looked into it. Obviously, did those come in are those only glue on?
Yeah.
They're
the big boy stuff. And
is there a reason for that?
They're not selling, so we're not producing them. They're only making the 300 for the elephant guys and the Cape Buffalo guys and that kind of thing. And that 300 is badass. That thing, that's what I shoot. I've got a steel insert that I glue into the shaft, and then I shoot the 300 grain tough head. That's my hunting broadheads. Unless I'm testing something, blah, blah, blah. I'll be doing some tests for Magnus later this year and stuff. But for personal hunting, that's the broadhead I shoot just because they are just – I really do think there's something to the long amount of time that broadhead's on the meat. And then it's also, it's by force of its own nature, it is going to rotate slightly, and the actual wound's going to be longer.
Yeah.
We're not talking about a whole saw, and we're not talking about a full rotation through a Cape Buffalo. It's about half. Yeah. Usually about a quarter turn is what I get out through a pig, but they're only, even a big one's only 14 inches wide, 12 inches wide. They're just not wide,
Right.
And the broadhead hits pretty dense material, then it hits nothing. The lungs and heart is basically the same density as water.
Yeah.
And then the lungs are nothing.
Yeah.
And then it hits something dense on the other side. So there's not a lot of rotational force. So that's part of the deal. But it's still cutting on a bias, still rotating slightly, and the wounds are a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But those long heads really stay on the meat a long time.
But I mean, if you look, generally speaking, though, even if you want to say, well, the wound channel is not that much longer, if you look at what it does to an animal, it seems like it's pretty significant. Even if it's only it only made a quarter a turn, half a turn versus not turning.
Mm-hmm.
Right. God.
Well, the blades, the way they set up, because they're like this, they cut on a bias, so nothing you cut is straight connected.
Yeah.
It's angled when it's cut off, so it can't seal up as easily.
Yeah.
Right? Airways, arteries, veins, whatever it goes through, it's cut on a bias. Just the nature of the blade itself. If it wasn't rotating, it would cut on a bias.
Yeah.
That's just a fact. It is what it is. And so another thing is every broadhead on the planet Earth stops rotating at impact, except even mechanicals, everything, except single bevels.
Yeah.
It's got to help for the broadhead to hit the meat, and got to have the flexions going in the same direction. So right's got to be right, left's got to be left. But it's got to help penetration to have it just not stop, because the broadhead, the shafts are spinning, and then with a double bevel, they stop rotating. Well, there's energy being transferred into the arrow somewhere as that thing stops rotating and tries to go forward.
Yeah. That was one of the big things when I had the Ashby guys on here. I had Nielsen, I had Rob Hummel, and we were talking about just how people don't, and again, it comes back to, I guess a lot of people just don't care to look this far into it, because, hey, that's what? It paper tuned good, and, Dad's killed a wall hanger with a whatever, so it's good. Yeah. People don't care to look into the energy side of it. And a big thing with that too is like kinetic energy with bows. People use the term kinetic energy a lot without, if you were to stop them and be like, hey, what does that mean? They're like, well, I don't, they said. But,
the sad thing is that stuff's all available on the internet. About 20 minutes you can read some very solid stuff from NASA and the Khan Academy talks about it. Like there's really good data on what KE actually is. Right. And then most people think that they can get more KE.
I know. That was one thing they touched on. It was that
there isn't more.
Your bow is what your bow is. You
That's
don't
right.
gain kinetic energy by shooting a lighter arrow, by shooting a different this or that. That bow has a set level.
Well, I'll tell you why the kinetic energy doesn't jump around. So it's mass times velocity squared, right? Pretty simple equation. So what you're doing is you're messing with the equation. You want to go faster, so that's going to bump up your KE a little bit, but you dropped the mass. Mm-hmm. It's just an equation.
Yeah.
So you keep lowering the mass to go faster. Generally speaking, if you would put that on paper, the percentage of mass you're reducing is greater than the speed you're gaining in feet per second when you're trying to go faster.
Mm-hmm.
Conversely, if you took an arrow from 400 grains to 550, okay, your speed won't go down at that rate. So if you doubled the shaft, I've done this. I've shot 1,000 grain arrow at some pigs. It's super awesome. They don't stop. If you double the mass, you don't lose 50% of your velocity. So let's say you were shooting 300 feet per second with a 350 grain arrow. I don't know what it takes to get 300 these days. Maybe we'll call it a 400 grain arrow.
Right.
let's just say you add 50%, you go to 600 grains. You're not going to lose 50% of your speed. It's not going to be 150 feet per second. It's not going to be about 240, right? So you've gained 50% in mass, and you've reduced your velocity 35%. It's an equation. So the KE is always the same.
Yeah.
Because you're taking from one and getting another. And going back to the lighter stuff, if you're shooting 425 and you go to 390, how many feet per second you really gain?
Right.
710? 7 or 10? Like, it's not 50.
Yeah. Well, that's
because the crossbow guys get away with this. They shoot 400 feet per second. The KE with a crossbow is outstanding.
Well, God, some of them shoot up at 5, around there.
Right, and then we actually shot one 2 years ago with a guy named Jeff Johnson, and he's a writer and an NRA guy, super nice guy. And we put like a 200 grain broadhead and a 100 grain insert on it, and then shot it through the lab radar, and he was getting like 170 foot-pounds. It was because it was so heavy, and it was a 450 foot per second launcher. It wasn't going that fast, but the kinetic energy was like ridiculous. It was like, okay, elephant time. Let's just go elephant hunting.
Yeah, no kidding.
Fine. It was fun to do. And have the radar with you, right?
Yeah.
It was super fun.
What is it? That shit's got to cost. What is a radar? I guess you don't have to say it, but what does that shit cost? I mean, that's got to be super expensive.
Crossbow?
No, just like the testing gear you guys use to test all of this stuff.
Well, lab radars are only $400 or $500. The foundation bought the high-speed camera. I think they're about 10 or 15 grand. They were expensive.
Yeah. And
that thing's hard to use. I admire the slow-mo guys and all these cool channels that do that stuff, because we were never that good at it. We never figured it out to that level. I need somebody to come help us figure it out. And then the rest of it's just breaking arrows all the time and doing stuff. Like lately I've been on a rampage of shooting random broadheads directly into the head of pigs. Like we'll just kill one with a rifle, put it up on a table, and just drive arrows through its forehead. I shot one under the chin and out the top of its head with a 630 grain arrow with a single bevel, and the fletchings were in its brain.
Really?
Yeah.
So that
under the chin and out right between the ears.
Yeah. So there's one thing I've heard, and I've heard it in multiple places, and it's got to do with kind of where I have a tendency of like wanting to bring a point up, but I preface things too far and then I forget about them. Mm-hmm. So we were talking about how a single bevel, how we got into the energy conversation. Mm-hmm. A single bevel is going to maintain, because of its rotating, the way that it rotates, the way that it splits bone, it's going to retain more energy than let's say a mechanical or anything else, where it's going to hit meat and it's going to hit that like stop point, and then it's just got to push through versus cutting through. Mm-hmm. I have heard that some individuals have actually said complete pass-throughs are not what you should be aiming for. You should want your arrows sticking halfway out of the animal so that the broadhead stays in the cavity, and as they run, it's doing all this damage.
There's a couple of pros that have been promoting this.
I don't understand
it.
I don't.
Absolutely off the rails. They're absolutely off the rails. They just don't understand anything about physiology.
That's where I'm kind of getting at, for you to explain and kind of debunk that, because I've heard that more times than I'd like to admit that. And, from first glance, if you don't know anything about arrows, you just got into hunting.
Like a great idea.
Wouldn't that make sense? That they're running, the arrow's flopping around, it's cutting, it's doing all this massive internal damage. What's actually happening? I'm guessing not that.
When people have an arrow half in a deer or something, they've hit the other side and it's anchored. So the broadhead actually isn't flopping around. Mm-hmm. It's in a bone. It's in the shoulder blade. There's a lot of scapula, cartilage actually in the shoulder blade, and it'll catch it. Mm-hmm. Plus, the rib cage is curved on the exit side, so it tends to want to go like this and grab stuff. Like it's flexing out, right? It's going like that. It's not bending in. So the idea sounds good. There's a couple of other things there. First of all, the animal now knows it's got something in its body, and they are going to run like the wind. Second, the shaft is in the hole.
Yeah.
In emergency medicine, if you get impaled on a stick, they leave it in you.
So
you don't pull it out on site. They wait till they got blood and they drop an IV. Then they say, okay, pull it and see what happens.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. It's going to interfere with lung deflation because it's going to be in the lungs. Theoretically, you got this 5-inch hole. I got that. And then third, how many of the blades on a mechanical don't start flopping around? So in other words, they're not locked and they're not cutting. They're actually wiggling around in there. So they're hung up in the tissues and they're just going like this. Well, tell me in the next, go try to cut anything by just going like this and pushing like that on stuff.
Yeah.
Rubber bands are a great example because your arteries are very similar to rubber bands and they are favorable to be severed.
Yeah.
So the crux of the thing is you really want to shoot through them so they don't run. You really want it to go through them so fast that they really don't know what happened. Yeah. I mean, they bump into things and bees bounce off of them and they live outside all the time. They don't go home and get in the air conditioner.
Right.
So the wound is, you want the wound completely devoid of any interfering material.
Yeah.
You don't want any blood vessels that are, the shaft's in the middle of them and the blood vessel's cut, but it's jammed against the shaft. Like, you don't want that. They're still bleeding, but not the same.
Yeah.
It's not as free. And then on the lung collapse side, you're not helping when the holes are corked up with anything. It doesn't let the air out the sides as efficiently.
Yeah.
I think the greatest lie in that one is the animal now knows there's something in them. The first tree they hit, they're going to light it on fire because they don't know what that is.
Right.
And so then your adrenaline goes up. There's actually a reaction from your body with massive amounts of adrenaline so that the arteries will clamp down, trying to conserve blood, and they're going to run faster.
Yeah.
And that means that all faster means is farther.
Right.
If you shoot right through them, a lot of deer don't even run that hard. They kind of hop and just kind of run off. They don't really run.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's been my experience. And that's one of when I try to advocate on, I'm sure you've been through this. You try to advocate. It's kind of like the taking the next step with like a 3-blade, like we were talking about. Mm-hmm. You try to advocate on a level that they can understand that doesn't blow their mind and turn them away. Mm-hmm. But one of the things is like, aside from when I've shot a deer quartering away where it's broken the opposite side shoulder. Mm-hmm. Obviously, at that point, that deer knew something happened.
Yeah, sure.
It couldn't run.
Did it pass through or did it stay in it?
Yeah, I went through.
Pass through?
But it couldn't run because it's got a broken shoulder. Mm-hmm. Now I've also had the situation, and I've seen the situation many, many times of a non-quartering shot where it's zipped through him. And it's to what you said, that deer was like, and then they don't react. And then 10 seconds later, they just eyes roll back and they're gone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, when we're talking, you want to hunt ethically, do you think that it's because you want to shoot a faster arrow? If you're arguing on the point of ethics, do you think it's more ethical that you're shooting something, even with a good shot, that's smacking the shit out of that deer, getting them to the point where like they know something happened, they go on their death march, that last 150 to 200 yard sprint. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't it be better if you zip through them? They thought it, like you said, a fly just bit them, and they kind of trot off because they heard the arrow come out and smack the ground. They know something was going on, but not enough to alarm them. And then 40 yards, they tip over.
It's better for the meat.
Oh, for
sure. It's better for your experience. It's better for going to get them. And it's just all around better. When they run fast, your blood trail is going to suffer.
Yeah.
There's going to be exceptions. Like if you my son just shot one. The first pig ever killed with a Ranchberry broadhead, my son killed about a month ago. And he hit it in the back armpit here, and it went out like right here under its chin. It didn't matter how fast that pig was running. There's going to be blood.
Yeah.
Because it hit all the arteries and it exited in his throat. And it's just spraying out the front of him. The blood trail was outrageous from the get-go. From the arrow shaft was laying there, and there was just blood. We just walked on, and the pig went 40 yards. So that's the exception. But tree stand shot, hit the upper third, exits lower third because you're shooting downhill. The perfect hit. If they're running 100 miles an hour, it ain't helping your blood trail. I don't care how much they're bleeding.
Right.
It's not helping that they're running really fast and bounding and stuff.
Yeah.
Right? They're jumping over things. Yeah. I had that trouble with black buck antelope here in Texas. Man, you shoot one of those guys and they turn into a rocket.
Yeah.
They can run fast. And we rarely had decent blood trails on them because, and I really do think they have really short hair. They got thin chest walls. They're small. They're like 70 pounds. There's nothing about them that should keep the blood in them. Yeah. Other than they get about 7 feet long and they look like a jet going across the freaking pasture. And then all of a sudden they roll it out, right? There's a big dust pile and like, gotcha, right? And it's just it's much better for your experience. The time hunting is sacred. The amount of effort is off the charts compared to, anything else we do. And you just lose. I still think it's as good an experience to have to get the headlamps out and spend 2.5 hours trying to find a deer.
No,
it's not as good an experience.
Something about the blood trail thing that I've said before, and I'm not the first one to say it. People want to shoot mechanicals because of blood trails. And I've heard it time and time again from other folks. Your blood trail's got a whole hell of a lot more to do with your exit than it does your broadhead. That's
100% true. If it doesn't exit, you're in trouble.
That's one thing that's driven me nuts about the hunting industry and how they push product. Mechanical's best blood trail you ever have. Well, if you don't make a good shot and you shoot it too high, there's a whole lot of cavity that's got to fill up.
That's right.
Or B, it doesn't penetrate through, you don't have an exit, and then your entrance is a traditional tree stand shot that's probably closer to the spine. You got a whole hell of a lot more cavity that's got to fill up.
Yep, that's a fact.
Now, if that
and you have a shaft in them, and the shaft's in them.
Maybe if that 4-inch wide cut mechanical makes it all the way through, which it's probably not. And you got that, because that's a big thing. Well, the cut radius is unbelievable. It's such a wide broadhead.
Dude, I've killed some stuff with them. God, I shot a black wildebeest with one in 2008, and blood shot 4 feet out of the thing. But I hit it right in the heart.
Yeah.
I only got 7 inches of penetration, but I hit the heart.
Yeah, right? I mean, and if you, like I said, your traditional Midwestern Iowa tree stand shot with the mechanical that's not coming out the other side, like.
Yeah, and those are some big deer too. Like we have little tiny deer here.
Yeah.
I call them Jimmy Buffett deer. You kill a 120-pound deer here on our place, you've killed a deer.
Really?
Right? Yeah, that's y'all's 9-month-olds.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. They still got spots when they're 120.
I let that one pass. Still got spots on it. 120-pounder, right?
Yeah, but that's the thing, it's such a, gosh, it's just such a, I feel like the industry of, the hunting community in itself is such a tight-knit community, mostly a tight-knit community. You get someone one-on-one, you can talk sense with them, you can go back and forth.
Right.
But then we have this overarching, like the social media side of it where because there's a hunting industry, you do have hunting companies and you have influencers and you have people making money. Yep. And there's so much information that's put out to make money. Because, hey, if I tell you, throw this mechanical on there, I don't got to tell you anything else. All I got to tell you is your blood trail is going to be great. Well, you didn't say that in order for the blood trail to be great, here are the factors that have to be met.
That's right.
And majority of the time, those factors aren't going to be met in real life. Yep. But to go back to it, so-and-so influencer, big-time hunter, got it to happen one time, so you can do it too. That's one thing that drives me nuts about that side of things is there's so much, let me borrow a term from the liberals, there's so much misinformation about hunting gear, specifically in the broadhead arrow bow.
Well, the thing that frustrates me about it took me a long time to find a company that would help me build arrows that have all of it.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of new fletchings that are out that are supposed to fix everything. One of them super popular. I see it I don't watch a lot of social stuff, but if it comes up 4 times on my feed, that means it's roaring out there. Because I'm more likely to be watching Gerald Swindle tell me about how to throw a jig and skip under a dock than I am bow hunting. God forbid, I get enough of that.
Right.
But back to the idea of the 12 factors, and another thing that I'm surprised that my channel ever took off, I've got the highest level of effort, the worst possible amount of effort to get arrow flight. It takes a ton of time.
Yeah.
I never thought it would happen, right? So there isn't a whiz-bang broadhead. There isn't a whiz-bang arrow. There isn't a whiz-bang fletchings. There isn't any fletching that's more awesome than any, by the way, except for feathers.
Yeah.
And the shape and all that stuff is a bunch of BS. The idea that one thing is going to fix everything, that's why people say, well, you're just not tuning your bows. If your arrow set is inconsistent, we went over this earlier, if all 12 of them are bending different off the bow, I don't give a damn how tuned it is. And what's funny about bow tuning is they tune with one arrow.
Yeah.
So they'll adjust yokes and cams and do all this wacky ass wizard crap with one of them.
Yeah.
Shoot the other ones.
Yeah.
Shoot them. I dare you. I dare you to do it. Right? So there isn't one thing, it's all of it. That's why Ed's 12 factors is brilliant. Can't break. Gotta fly perfect. That's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Can't break is easy to buy nowadays. There's a ton of great broadheads that ain't gonna break or bend or all that stuff or have edges that fail. Perfect air flight's a pain in the ass. And forward to center, and then all the rest of them. Sharp, single bevel, angle of attack, the shaft needs to be smaller than the broadhead ferrule. Those details, you need to be looking at how many of the factors do you have? 7's better than 5.
Right.
It is, and that's kind of my mindset behind the 3-blade.
Yeah.
I took you from 5 to 7.
Yeah.
Right? Doesn't break, sharp, you can sharpen it, you can shoot it. So there's a bunch of advantages there, right? And that's probably the most challenging part of the industry stuff is, going back, like I said, with Joe Rogan, I'm not knocking on him, but he shot his bow one time through paper, said, we're ready to go.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, okay, that's one.
Yeah.
Have the boys tell you to shoot all of them?
Right.
And if they all shoot fine. But God dang, check it. Don't just sit there and do form and say, I don't know why I can't get them to group.
Right.
Well, I know.
Yeah.
Call me. TroyRanchFair.com. I'll help you out.
You need to let's put you on. He's had way, and I'm not calling you wacky at all. He's had way wackier guests on there. Why not have Ranch Fairy on Rogan? I've
been applying for a long time. I hope to get on there sometime. It'd be a lot of fun. I'd actually probably take him off topic and we'd probably talk about politics or something. I want to pick his brain because if I ever got on there, I want to talk to him about Musk and Peterson and some of the other guys he has and just say,
right.
Dude, let's talk about real stuff. Arrows are interesting, but God dang, man.
But you look at
why's the world burning down?
Yeah. You look at how inquisitive Joe Rogan is. I think he would be absolutely intrigued by you and by the Ashby. Does he know about the Ashby reports? Does he?
Probably not.
Surely, and you'll probably argue this.
He's friends with all the right people. He doesn't need, I'm not part of the conversation.
But there's no way that he doesn't know who you are. There's no way.
I would doubt one bit he's ever seen a damn thing about me.
No,
because he has his boy.
He has, though. Because you've got to look at it in both ways. He may not know you from let's just call it a friendly perspective, but he knows who you are from all of those guys who trash on you. He knows who you are, and you would think that he would be like, you know what? Because look at the crazy guests he gets on there. You would think that he would either genuinely want to talk to you to learn or to argue with you, because that's what he does. Yeah. He either learns or he argues. I think he'd be a phenomenal guest.
No,
Not
we'd
only
have a lot of, I would love to do that. I'd love to hang out with him.
Well,
like I said, I would probably take it off topic and we'd start talking about Thomas Sowell and economics.
yeah, well, no, because I mean, think about it. You could even get with all this stuff because he's talked to so many different people in physics, astro, blah blah blah, this and all these different things. He has at least a baseline knowledge in a lot of shit. And I feel like you guys could have a very, very in-depth, even if it's talking about the physics behind aeroflight, that I think would be, whether or not the episode would end with Ranch Fairy is right and I agree or I don't agree, there'd be a lot of really good information that would get out to a lot of people and get them just thinking about it.
Yeah, right. No, that's my goal. I know I needle people and crank a lot of tractors, and that's fine. But that's part of my, I can't be 80%, so I just kick everybody in the head. But kind of in closing, I really want everybody to think about, if you've made it this far, thank you very much, by the way. Don't think it's one thing. If you get anything from all of this, and some of you guys' heads are smoking right now, I got that. There's never one thing that will solve everything. Your point about, hey, if the single bevel's dull or sharp, which one's better? Well, that's kind of a stupid question. We want the sharp one, right? Yeah. But it's a great question because it addresses something that I think sharpening is one of the most overlooked things on the planet.
Absolutely.
As far as bowing is, and nobody checks it, right?
Yeah.
I think nobody checks it because they don't know what sharp is anymore. And I'm a fan of replaceable blade knives. I love them things. But don't rely on one thing. There's no magic fletching. There's no magic broadheads. There's the system. There's the whole thing. Kind of what I said about the ammo. If you kind of half-ass seeded your bullets and you kind of half-ass put in a little bit of this and a little bit of that as far as powder is concerned, and then you immediately bench up at 500, you're going to be sad.
Yeah.
Because it's just not going to launch consistently. At 100, it may be fine.
Yeah.
But at 500, another thought behind that is for you people who hunt multi-species, something we didn't get to dive into, but it's pretty straightforward. If you own a 243 and you shoot whitetail deer with it, which I love 243 for what we do, we shoot 150 yard and under, a lot of fixed stand, box shooting, stuff like that, fields and stuff. Easy. Great rifle for deer.
Yeah.
Do you take it elk hunting?
Right.
Seriously. Do you shoot a 240? It can be done. I get it can be done. But do you not take your mentality to 30 caliber or get a gun with more pop for bigger animals?
Right.
If that's the case, then why aren't you doing that with arrows? Because they're way less efficient than a bullet.
Yeah.
They really are.
That's a great point because I don't think that mentality transfers over into archery at all.
It doesn't at all. It doesn't at all. People just say certain speed, I can shoot 60, it's bound to penetrate.
Yeah.
It's bound to penetrate.
You'll always have that 4% of people who would say, I can kill an elephant with a 22 long rifle if you put a good shot placement.
That's
You'll
true.
always have,
and then
you'll never get away
most of the time,
from
you're
them.
going to turn into the stuff between the elephant's toes.
Right.
Or he's going to grab you by the feet with his trunk and beat you on a tree.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you can try it. It's been done. I guarantee you it's been done by some crazy people.
But yeah, it's interesting that because exactly what you said. If I told you, okay, you're gonna go hunt rabbits, you'd be okay. I'll do a 22. Okay, now you're gonna go hunt an elephant. You would say, okay, we're leaving the 22 at home, and we're gonna go get a big boy gun.
Yeah, we're gonna get a 460 or 570.
Like you said, why are we hunting elk the same as we're hunting deer, the same as we're hunting foam 3D targets?
Yeah. Right. Right, and I realized I sawed myself off a little bit there. I'm sitting on the branch and I'm sawing on the wrong side because I basically said, I think if you're a philosopher and you're paying attention, I basically said, I think there's deer arrows and I think there's elk arrows. I actually do kind of believe that, but I would always just shoot an elk arrow.
Well, yeah. I mean, coming from, I feel like if, I don't know. this is me personally, and I think you're kind of the same way. Why wouldn't you shoot the deer with the elk arrow? If that arrow is going to zip through an elk,
375 H&H will kill all the deer in the world, I promise you. But
my biggest,
243 will not kill a Cape buffalo very well. It will do it. It can do it maybe, but it will not do it well. Right.
Yeah. And my end game is so speaking to light arrows and mechanical, do they work on whitetails? For sure they do. Mm-hmm. But my end all be all is, can it fail?
Yep.
And the answer would be yes. Does it fail? Yes. Is there an alternative that does not fail? Yes.
As often, right? Yep. So I'm gonna simplify that thought because I know what you're thinking. The thought should be a little bit different on that, and it should be what gives you the highest percentage chance in all impact points to acquire the critter that you just stuck an arrow in.
Correct.
So if you can, I've said this a lot, we're trying to take a ton of variables, hunting, fishing, or hunting, weather, rain, time. You rush out to hunt for 2 hours because you got to coach baseball at 10, but you're trying to kill a deer by 8.
Yeah.
Everybody does that.
Yeah.
If you're a grown-ass man with kids, then you've done it.
Yep,
for
sure.
There's all these variables. We're trying to reduce the number of variables that allows for efficient acquisition of critters. And if you have a couple of weird experiences with whatever your arrow system is and the shot was okay, you really should sit back and go, damn it, why? I started talking about, I'm not going to go into the hook thing that I'm exploring right now, but I just changed to a different hook altogether yesterday. And before that, I had noticed that the hook I was using was only penetrating so far, but it wasn't going through the bones. And the hook I changed to yesterday, I jacked 6, and I mean, through the nose. And I said, okay, if I stick a big one, I got a better chance, because his bone structure is going to be bigger in his mouth, of penetrating it when I had 2-pound fish and I wasn't breaking through the bone.
Right.
So I'm reducing the number of variables, because you don't, for the kind of bass fishing I'm doing, I don't get a lot of shakes at 8-pounders.
Right.
I get one every couple of weeks. I stick one that's 6 to 8 pounds, and I catch a ton of small fish. Yeah. Right. I don't care. I'd rather catch the 8 than have him shake off and catch a bunch of 2s.
Well, that translates right into, like I said, primarily my audience is going to be talking whitetail hunting. Mm-hmm. You can test as many arrows as you want on spikes, on 110s, on 130-inch deer. Mm-hmm. When that 200 walks in, you're in Iowa, you're a non-resident, you drew the tag for the first time, maybe the only time you're going to get. You show up, and that 200 walks out.
And he's 250 pounds.
You want to question it, or do you want to know?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
what if it's slightly quartering in?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Shoot him back and pray?
Yeah, the last thought on your mind should be, will my equipment hold up to this situation?
Yep.
And that can be a big thought in your head, and it doesn't have to be. You know what I mean? There's a better
I've talked
option.
to multiple people who passed on a lot of big animals because they knew it couldn't do it.
And I mean,
that's the ethical thing to do.
Yeah, I commend them for that. But like, what a crappy situation to be in. You got the deer of a lifetime, and you don't have confidence in your gear. Mm-hmm. Like what? Well, then what are you even out there for?
Yep.
You know,
there is that.
Well, man, we covered a lot of ground. I've had you now for over 2 hours, so I don't want to keep you. I feel like we could keep going and going and going if we did. Yep. But I appreciate you coming on, man. I really do. Like I said, I owe you a great amount of thanks for the stuff that you do put out.
Thank you.
Like I said, my first year out, it was a hunting public, and it was you for deer hunting. And I've learned a great deal of information from you that I've been able to see play out in my own. Like I said, I've only been hunting 3 years. This upcoming deer season's my 4th one, where I kind of feel like maybe I'm a real deer hunter now.
Right.
But the amount of information that I've been able to learn from you, aside from you, it would take me 30 years of hunting to figure out.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping to do. I was hoping to shorten people's
Yes, you've really fast-tracked my learning curve to where,
good,
like we were just saying, I don't have questions about my gear. I can focus on the shot. I can focus on the situation. I can focus on the animal. I don't have to worry about that.
Send it, baby.
That's right. That's right. And when that sucker corkscrews, I don't got to worry about it because it's still going to go through them. You know.
That's right.
So I just want to say thank you for that, and I think you are definitely, after talking to you for 2 hours, you're not a person that's going to be like, well, you know, I'm just going to hang the hat, and you know, I know you're going to keep going, and I hope you do, because
I will.
You know, your message is.
I got plenty. I got videos out to September already because I'm thinking about fishing.
God dang, man!
It's all pre-scheduled.
I need to figure out how you do that.
Well,
I scrape by the. I wake up every morning.
March, I've got. Let's see. This is my list of videos I haven't done yet, and I've got 2 more to post-it notes. I sit here and I'll write something down and set it over there.
Yeah.
And so between February and April, I just put my head down.
Yeah.
And I'll do like 10 videos, and then interspersed in that, I'll get on the hunting public and do something with them, or something will come up.
Right.
Or somebody will ask a question. I get 5 in the same week. I get a question. I do a lot of videos off my email, and I go, I need to do a video on that so I can just send it to them.
Yeah.
Rather than typing the answer. I'm not trying to be lazy. It's just easier for them on their time too to watch it and go, oh, that's the answer.
Right.
You know.
Well,
that's the answer.
I got a 4-year-old and a 1-year, almost 2-year-old. So I'm on the daily. I'm waking up at 4 a.m. wondering what the hell I'm going to post today.
Yeah. I hear you.
But yeah, man, like I said, I really appreciate spending the time with me. It has been an awesome conversation. And I just couldn't have asked for a better podcast to do with you. Again, thank you for everything that you've put out there, because I've learned a ton. Let everybody know, if they don't know yet, let everybody know where they can find you online.
Probably just Google Ranch Fairy. My name is so weird, it doesn't matter.
Genius, by the way. Search engine optimization, genius.
Yeah, right. That was a mistake, an accident, a sheer accident, but it worked. And then I'm on Instagram. That's mostly where I play around on social media stuff. When I'm old and I don't do much of it. Under the Ranch Fairy. So you'll see stuff pop up, smart ass comments and all that good stuff. But just Google the Ranch Fairy, it'll come up. And we have a whole set of arrows and all that stuff with Sirius and broadheads. And my email is troy@ranchfairy.com, or you can hit me on Instagram on the messages. I get about 1,000 messages a month between May and November, and it's all arrows and bow tuning and all that stuff. And I'll help you as much as I possibly can. I don't care what you're shooting. I get plenty of people who say, hey, I'm shooting brand X and broadhead Y. I just want them to fly. Then I'll help you. I don't care. It isn't that much of a deal for me. I want you to send me a picture of a dead deer. Now that's what I do like. All winter, I post pictures on my Instagram. So if you send me a picture of you and a deer, I'll post it on my Instagram. And that's been one of the more rewarding parts of this is I get to celebrate everybody else. Yeah. And that's what I want to do. I want everybody to bomb me with pictures, and I love to put them out. Some of it is, hey, it works. Got that, you know. But the other part of that is I'm part of their freaking happiness and their success in this world.
Right.
That's super rewarding for me.
Yeah.
I don't care about killing them that much anymore. I killed a Pope and Young deer in 2007, and I have not shot a deer since.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I had kids at the same time, so I took them hunting, and they nephews, and they blasted the hell out of them, and we have a lot of fun at the ranch. But I just don't deer hunt that much anymore. But to see everybody else succeed, that's super rewarding for me, and I hope it continues.
Well, I'm sure it will. I know it will. So, well, hey guys, make sure you're checking him out on Instagram and online, whether it's YouTube or, again, his Instagram. Look up the Ranch Fairy. There's a lot of information that, whether you want to agree or not, you should at least expose yourself to.
Yeah, right. Snort just a little fairy dust.
Yeah, just snort a little bit, see if you like it. Because he's one of the only sources that actually test. He's not just writing it on a broadhead package telling you what should happen. He's telling you what happens. And he's got a video for every scenario that you've possibly thought of. What about ballistic gel testing? Well, there's a video for that.
Got it.
So do yourself a service before you pick which camp you're in. If you're going to go that route, research the other side. there's a lot of great information that even if you don't want to shoot a 650 arrow, you can roll into your 500 grain arrow, as he said earlier, where 7 factors is better than none. And ultimately that's what we're looking for. So,
and by the way, be forewarned if you haven't seen me, I'm a little wacky.
Not too bad.
Just let it roll. Let it roll. I'm not a good old Southern boy trying to be nice to everybody.
Right.
I tend to be a little bit in your face, nothing personal.
Well, I think we need more of that. We need more straightforward. We need less bullshit,
Yeah, I hear you.
But guys, check him out. Make sure you're checking us out too. That's at Antler Feather Co. on, what is it? Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Instagram is where kind of home base is. Threads is out now. I'm over there. I thought it was cool for a day, but I'm kind of already over it. Same reason I didn't use Twitter. Make sure you're following us. Make sure you're going to antlerfeatherco.com. Grab some gear. Thanks for listening, guys. If you found something that you put into your quiver, you're going to take into the woods with you in this episode, I'm going to ask that you please share the show with your friend's girlfriend, your girlfriend's girlfriend. Yeah, right. I don't care who you share it with.
Brothers, outlaws, in-laws.
Yeah, all of them. Just share the show. When you do that, that helps me continue to bring amazing guests on like we had today. And ultimately, that is going to make you more deadly in the woods. So for Troy, for Vince, this is the Antler and Feather Co. podcast. You are listening to the Antler and Feather Co. podcast.